And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, for me, I'm still in the 49th state of Alaska. It's 4:05 in the morning. It's bright. It's early. Some people say they hate to Monday morning quarterback. But guess what? It's Monday morning and we're going to quarterback because sometimes it's necessary. Friendly fire incident in Queens almost cost the life of an NYPD detective. It's time we actually talk about what's really going on, what's behind this, and how do we actually rectify the problem. John, let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. So listen, I think we're going to piss a lot of people off. And you know what? I don't care. It needs to be said because, I still the deaths of Detective Brian Simonson and Detective Brian Mulkeen still weigh heavily on my head. And I think it weighs heavily on the majority of NYPD members who were on at that time. And those of you who weren't, you should look at that and say, I'm out here, I'm playing this dangerous game. And, sometimes I'm playing it with people that have no business. If they were watching this game in the stands, they wouldn't even know what they were watching. They wouldn't even know what I was doing. So we have legitimate professionals on the street partaking in probably the hardest job in the world, policing the streets of America. Right? I don't think there's anything that even comes a close second. I really don't. It's really a fine line that you have to dance, and you have to be an utmost professional. And what we're about to talk about is obviously opinion based. The department has put out very limited info. I don't think we'll ever see the body cameras, but we should. So everything we're going to talk about circumstantial, it's opinionated, it's some of it coming through anonymous sources, but you're not going to hear this take anywhere else on the media or anywhere else because they're just not going to talk about it. Unions aren't going to talk about it. The police commission is not going to talk about it because ultimately they really don't give a shit about any use. And, they'd rather just plan your funeral and go on and get it than actually correct what's happening with the diminished department, with people who don't belong in policing, and really just deflect from the fact that this is an incompetent, inept agency and they're putting people out there on the streets who have absolutely no business being police officers. So, yeah, sorry for the warm welcome this morning, but let's get into it. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Morning, guys. Morning, chat. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I'm as much of a listener today as I am a participant in the discussion, because I'm sure John and Eric are going to drop a lot of knowledge on us about what's been going on. But like John says, our discussion is probably going to piss people off, but there are things that need to be said because this seems to be the only place where a lot of it gets said. With the unions already jumping behind Eric Adams and with seemingly no intention of changing or pushing for change or from the status quo, what's happening right now. There are things that need to be said. As we said many times on the show, our goal is for a better NYPD product. So yeah, let's get on with the discussion and let's have some fun.
So let's start breaking it down. So what's interesting if we start to look at friendly fire incidents is if we look at the time period, right? So former Mayor Bill de Blasio gets into office 2014. And to me, what's interesting is it's a little more than a decade ago, right? But if we look at from 2018 till now, this is now the third friendly fire incident. And I hate using the word friendly fire because there's nothing friendly about it. But it's interesting to break it down because in my opinion, 2018, and we mentioned it numerous times on this podcast, is a pivotal moment in the history of NYPD where we start to see extreme amount of change in legislation. We see extreme amount of change in the NYPD, particularly the image, the appearance of it, the quality of the NYPD, the type of training, and we see the standards start to be reduced. And 2018 is that pinnacle moment. And I know particularly that's when 2018 is when I was attacked by an overzealous civilian complaint review board. So that's a pinnacle moment. And sure enough, in 2019, we lost the lives of 2 police officers in friendly gunfire in 2019. And here we are now, 6 years later, right? May they rest in peace, Detective Mulkeen and Detective Simonson. So we lost 2 law enforcement officers in 2019, and here we are 6 years later. 6 years later, we have another friendly fire incident. And thank God we don't have a rampant amount of police officers being shot, but that is starting to change. So this should be a major concern. It should be alarming. And to me, the problem is this: we have to stop putting blame on the perpetrators. We have to put blame on the system, blame on the training. Someone put here crazy 10-7. Remember Omar Edwards? Yes, that's another incident. But I really want to, and may he rest in peace, also former housing. I really want to put emphasis on these years right now, because particularly where I see a major problem. And when we look at these friendly fire incidents, especially these incidents right now, we keep seeing the blame on the perpetrator. Now, does the perpetrator put the police officers into action? Yes. But is it the perpetrator's fault, or should we be blaming and using the perpetrator as a scapegoat? No. We need to blame the system. We need to blame the leadership and ultimately the training. And it all weaves in together. In order to correct, we need to get to the root cause. And those are the problems. Not just saying it's the perpetrator. If that's the case, why do we even train at all? Every time there's an incident, just blame the perpetrator. And to me, that's just another cop-out.
So, the first thing that happens is, we were on the show. We were live on the show on Friday when this came over. We had a cop shot in the 109. We heard it was a detective. We didn't know it was friendly fire while we were on, right? We had no idea. So later on that day, press conference comes out. And it's Eric Adams, it's Jessica Tisch, and it's Scott Monroe, the Detectives Endowment Association president. And all I hear from any of them is they're talking about Albany. They're trying to place the blame at the feet of bail reform. So I'll just corroborate some of what they're saying. The perp was arrested the day prior for fare evasion. He was on parole. He was arrested for about 10 felonies, I believe, prior to this incident happening. So that night prior, if not for bail reform, he would have spent the night in jail, probably would have violated his parole and went back to do some further sentencing and pay some more time, obviously, because he's not ready to be back on the street. So if not for Andrew Cuomo's bail reform, this doesn't happen. But, however, we have the bail reform that, by the way, Eric Adams cheered on. That, by the way, I'm sure Jessica Tisch cheered it on as well. I don't know, Jessica, but I don't know. I know your family's big Democratic donors, and I'm sure you're a Democrat. So, and I remember that time, and I'm not going to sit there and pretend like Zohran Mamdani, Eric Adams, and Andrew Cuomo were any different than each other in 2020, because they weren't. They were the same exact dude. They had the same exact policies. Now it's election season, and everybody wants to reinvent themselves. But the bottom line is this. Would that have happened if bail reform? No. But there's about 20 other things that happen in between here that also led to the shooting, where Detective Corey Fisher was struck by not so friendly fire. Because I agree with you, Eric. I hate that term, because I'll be honest with you. If somebody's shooting a firearm at me, I don't consider them a friend. And I give a lot of credit to Detective Corey Fisher and his partner for not shooting back, because their lives were in danger. A totally dangerous situation. And we'll get up to the events that lead into this, but let's just get a little bit of this press conference. Let's just hear what the mayor is saying first. This is the initial thing. Now, they know this is a friendly fire shooting. They know the details that we're about to speak about. The media hasn't put this out to a lot of people, and what you're going to hear a lot of things that are going to blow your mind, especially if you're a former NYPD member. Especially if you're a former NYPD member. And you know what? For those of you that don't like what we're saying, don't care. So here's the illustrious Eric Adams with his pretend somber attitude which anybody could have called. Here we go. Here's him electioneering. Oh, the petulant little skinny there, bro.
Today we are reminded once more of the risk every man and woman that performs public safety in the city, specifically the members of the New York City Police Department, faces with they put on the uniform and that badge, especially with our current state laws that allow for a revolving door of criminal activity. And for dangerous people to be put back on our streets after they have committed crimes, and as recently as yesterday, and on parole, it just sends a terrible signal to our public and a terrible signal to the men and women who repeatedly attempt to apprehend and ensure our city is a safe place. Patrol officers from the 109th Precinct responded to a carjacking of an Uber driver. While at the location, on-duty narcotics detectives from Queens South, who were headed back to their office after executing a search warrant, came across the incident and stopped to help the apprehension. During the apprehension, one detective from Queens South Narcotics was shot twice, wounded in the arm and the leg. At this time, it appears this was a friendly fire incident. Thankful these injuries are not life-threatening, and we expect him to make a full recovery. We just visited his mom and his wife, who is expecting a child at this time, and it was a relief to them that their loved one will be okay. And I want to thank him for his bravery when I visit him. He's now in surgery and his 12 years of service. Right now, one perpetrator is in custody and will face justice in the court of law. But I want to be clear, regardless of who shot our detective, there's one person responsible for starting the chain of events that landed us in the hospital today. This is a man who should have been behind bars, not on our streets. He's a 28-year-old recidivist with a lengthy rap sheet of robbery and assaulting officers, who was on parole for a robbery that took place in March and was literally arrested again and released yesterday with a desk appearance ticket. Before going out to attempt a carjacking in Queens, he walked out of one of our criminal justice locations. This is a definition, I believe, of insanity. Arresting the same people over and over again and expecting different results. NYPD is gathering more information about the crime, but it's clear that this individual has no business walking free and endangering New Yorkers. From day one, this administration has been focused on driving down crime and have delivered results over and over again, but we need help from our lawmakers. We cannot allow repeated offenders to commit repeated violent acts in our city. We know the reality of what that means, and we know what it means to prepare our officers for this dangerous work. They're training hard and taking risks. They run towards dangers while others run away. We call them New York finest for a reason, and we saw that today. And we're going to continue to support them as they do their job. I want to turn it over to Commissioner to give a full details of the events.
So he says it's the finest work, and he lays all of the blame at the feet of the unarmed perpetrator who did the carjacking. So when you shoot members of the NYPD, as a member of the NYPD, you are also considered the finest. Guys, what are you thinking about what the mayor has to say here?
Yeah, I'm thinking. It's funny that like a week or two after this, no, they won't remember any of it. And we keep going through the same cycles. These tragedies happen, and luckily this didn't get any worse. But we go through these tragedies. We have a week of where the NYPD sends you bulletins in the email about training and all this, and then in 2 weeks this is all forgotten again. And there is never any substantive changes to any substantive and any prolonged changes, from incidents like this. And it kind of annoys me that we keep repeating the same cycles over and over again. At what point does the job recognize that the problems that it has, and moves to make those changes so that we don't repeat these same instances? And I also want to point out that it's actually been more friendly fire incidents than the two. Those are just the two that ended with a fatality. But there was remember about a year ago, there was a shooting on a train. I believe it was the L train in Brooklyn, and the perp had a knife, and one officer was shot in the chest, and it was crossfire. And we did an episode about that where we talked about, I believe it was on Friday, where we talked about the poor tactics in it. But and also there was one a couple of years ago also that happened in the 8-1. Now, again, there was no fatality involved and the officers were fine, but the job did say it was a friendly fire incident. So this happens a lot. And I'm pretty sure it happens even more than has ever been reported in the news. And yet we keep going through it again and again. And as we've talked about here, all the things the job and the mayor has done have contributed to making this worse. And those include the hemorrhaging of personnel and experienced personnel to help guide these younger cops and to tell them, hey, dude, you shouldn't do it this way. You should do it this way. Your tactics might need to be adjusted, because as we've also said, the training you get on this job is inadequate. So in a lot of ways, the experienced personnel in precincts kind of fill in those gaps that the job itself can't do or won't do. So a lot of the things that the job has done has contributed to the problems that we're seeing now. And yet a week or two after these incidents, the job goes back to business as usual, and we forget these things ever happened. And to me, it's very frustrating.
I think that's a great point that you brought up. And I was putting extreme emphasis on the death of Brian Mulkeen and, of course, Brian Simonson, because they both lost their lives. But you're right. There are more friendly fire incidents. Again, I hate using that term, but that's the term. Even when I was in the Marine Corps, that's the term. Speaking of the Marine Corps, there's such an emphasis when I was overseas in Iraq on, God forbid, having a friendly fire incident. And that's an even more chaotic environment. So I think it's important that we pay attention to these press conferences. And here's the reason why. If we listen to these press conferences, it really paints the bigger picture of the framework for the administration, particularly this administration, which is a current administration for New York City. And the framework is what we talk about, is controlling the narrative, right? So what Eric Adams is doing here is actually quite intelligent, but thank you to podcasts like this, is we actually examine it, quarterback it, and give you the real silver lining for what's happening. So what Eric Adams is trying to do with this press conference is to shift your focus from the real problem of what really happened and put emphasis and focus on the perpetrator, but not the real problem. Because ultimately, let's be clear. Did the perpetrator set the scene for the actions in play? Yes. But ultimately, the trigger pull is on behalf of the professionals. And who are the professionals? That's what he's calling New York's finest. Does that sound professional that we shot one of our own? What happens in a friendly fire incident? There's either a lack of training, there's a problem with judgment, or there's a problem with discipline. Those are the three main factors. Training, judgment, and discipline. Could be one of those. It could be all together. In this particular incident, I believe it's all. And if we break down, we start to look at friendly fire incidents, it's usually all three of those. And that's why I say 2018 is a pinnacle moment. Because if we look from 2018 now, it also corresponds to the issue that the NYPD has now have that's been exposed, that psychologists, unqualified, not licensed properly, according to the New York City rules and regulations, are potentially hiring those that are disqualified or should not be on the job, and disqualifying those potentially should be on the job. And I think the numbers are 50 to 60% of the job now has less than 5 years on the job. So Marlon, you brought up a great point. While the training in the NYPD was never fantastic, ultimately the voluminous work of the NYPD of doing intrusive police work under former mayors before Bill de Blasio, which ultimately under Giuliani and under Bloomberg, the NYPD was active in intrusive police work. So it's a byproduct. You learn also the police officers had a better camaraderie, better cohesiveness, and also there were veteran police officers over decades to pass that torch. And 2018 to me is that pinnacle moment where we started to see a change, and I say it all the time, where men and women were hired that were meek, timid, and docile, and white alpha males and white alpha females were not getting the job, particularly. And we see the image of the job change right now. I spoke recently about a picture of the 7-3 precinct where we could see it's completely not organic in the hiring process. So to me, these are numerous contributing factors. And also, former Mayor Bill de Blasio derailed the job. And then Eric Adams defunded the job. And what does that mean? The training standards are extremely low. The manpower is extremely low. So the police officers are out there working to the point that they're burning the candle on both ends. They're exhausted and lacking training and lacking the cohesiveness, lacking veteran police officers to teach them, lacking that discipline, lacking leadership. And we see that in all ferments in a case like this. And yes, thank God this police officer did not lose his life. But will we get so lucky the next time? Friendly fire is not so friendly. Again, look at those three things: training, judgment, and discipline.
You know what really annoys me is like just listening to this press conference. Oh, the finest, the brave men and women. You know what really annoys me is like we're held strictly accountable for every round we discharge, unless you shoot or kill a cop. Then you're a hero. If you get involved in a bad shooting and shoot a cop, you're fine. The job's going to cover it up. Don't worry about it. I mean, that's what we've seen in every incident. People have went on to get promoted. People have went on to had careers, got to their 20 years, retired. I mean, I'm sorry. Shouldn't it be worse? Shouldn't it be considered? If this guy, if you would get involved in a bad shooting, we're going to get into the details of the shooting. But I just real quick question. If you got into a bad shooting and you shot a perp once or twice and you hit him, what happens to you? You're getting fired. You're going to jail. If you get into a bad shooting and you kill a cop or a cop gets hit once or twice, what happens to you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Job covers it up for you. Fucking unions go to bat for you. You're the finest. You're the bravest. I mean, does everyone see what's happening at this press conference? Friendly fire shooting. Let's not talk about it. No big deal. Sorry. You know what? Yeah, the perp caused the incident to happen. Yeah, bail reform was another incident that happened. We're going to talk about something else, how this incident could have been avoided that the news also isn't covering. But I mean, I'm sorry. Should a cop be held accountable when his bullets hit another cop? I would think he should be held more accountable. But for some reason, I'm seeing cops are held less accountable. Am I wrong on that opinion?
That's a very good point. Uh, I think the issue is that when a cop shoots another cop, it really reflects the poor tactics and poor tactical preparation of the job, and the job doesn't want people. They certainly don't want the public to realize how poorly trained NYPD cops really are. The job still rides on this long, in my opinion, this long gone reputation that the NYPD used to have as the best department in the country. I think that I mean now don't get me wrong. I think an NYPD cop could do well anywhere, because what makes an active NYPD cop great is that we make up for the lack of resources and training that we get. So you get an active cop in, say, from the Bronx, Brooklyn North, the roughest places in the city, the 6-7. That cop has seen a lot, and I'm pretty sure that cop will do well wherever you put him. But the problem is that the job itself, as an institution, in my opinion, is no longer the pinnacle of law enforcement in this country, and we see it daily. And the job doesn't want to confront that. They don't want to confront its shortcomings, because ultimately it reflects poorly on them, on their leadership, and on the things they haven't done, especially in the last 4 years. I mean, we talked about it before. I mean, you have John Child wasting time, like posting pictures with the Jonas Brothers and golf tournaments with Trump. Now, if the department was in a better shape, I'd say go for it. But if I was in his shoes, that'd be the last thing I want to post a picture of. When the job is falling apart and you're doing that. I mean, where's your priorities? But that's been what the leadership has been doing for the last 4 years. They've been busy patting themselves on the back and telling you they're the dream team and they're so great, and yet you keep seeing it daily, instances where the job as an institution is failed. So the problem with friendly fire incidents is it kind of wakes up the public, and if people think deeper into these and they look deeper, and especially the media, how unprepared NYPD cops are to actually exercise their duties, and the job doesn't want to confront that.
It's easy to blame the bad guy. That's why it's easy to blame the bad guy and actually make the bad guy the scapegoat in this entire scene, and not actually get to the root cause of the problem. It goes back to what John Scola said on Sal Greco's show. The NYPD leadership, it's an epic fail when it comes down to fixing root problems. They just pay in litigation after litigation and never fix the root of the problem. The root of the problem here, I think, comes back to 3 categories I just said, and I broke it down. It's training, it's judgment, and it's discipline. And you need all those 3 aspects to be an effective police officer and to be an effective unit. To actually call the NYPD New York's finest, you have to do the finest job. And so, John, you brought up a great point. I actually want to bring up another point, and that's a great point. There is hell to pay if you unintentionally, or if there's a accidental incident where you fire on a bad guy. But not only that, and we've seen this numerous times, you're accountable for every round that leaves your firearm, because that round cannot come back. And we had incidents recently also where police officers fire rounds. They did strike the perpetrator, but incidental to that, they also struck innocent bystanders. That's another problem. Innocent bystanders shooting each other in friendly fire incidents. These are major problems that go back to what I've been saying is discipline. You need extreme amount of discipline when you have that firearm. And with discipline comes that training. And training is not something that you can just check a box one time. Training, those skills that you have from training are perishable. All those skills. Even though I think that just the 3 of us right now on this panel, John, Marlon, and myself. I believe that we have a great head for police work. But if we were put back in the NYPD tomorrow, I believe that we would have to go through a course of training before we start conducting ourselves, because many of those skills that we have would need to be sharpened, because skills are perishable. And the same goes for police officers that are active. You need constant training to reestablish those skills that you have. And as policing evolves, you need to also sharpen and get new skills acquired. So clearly we see a lack of training, and we see a lack of discipline and a lack of judgment. In the end, to me, I thought about this. Why is there a lack of judgment? I think it boils down to what we've been saying, is that there is a handful or a majority of police officers right now that don't understand the mission, don't understand that they're doing a serious job and how serious business this is. They're lacking the training, and they do not have that veteran baseline of cops to teach them. That was the one thing that was special and unique about the NYPD, is the vast amount of veteran cops passing that torch. And we don't have that right now. We don't have that because of former Mayor Bill de Blasio that stripped away from the police department and really curbed doing intrusive police work. That's what makes a good police officer, engage the public. We also have that followed up with COVID, a mass exodus, and also we lost qualified and veteran cops to the vaccine mandate. And then we also lost police officers to politics, Justice Sal Greco, overzealous civilian complaint review board, like myself, and many others. And these are factors. If we break them down little by little and we put them together, it's almost like making stew. And we can see there's numerous factors. Is bail reform and the legislation that we've had and this revolving door of recidivism, is that a problem? Of course it is. But that still does not negate the fact that a police officer fired their weapon in an unarmed incident, which makes this even worse. It's not even a perpetrator firing rounds and these get mistaken. This is a major problem. And the police department is not addressing the real issue. Why? Because it's under Eric Adams, and even further, this is election year.
So this is the police commissioner comments at the press conference.
Thank you, sir. The information that I am about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At this point, here is what we know. Earlier this morning, as detectives assigned to Queens South Narcotics were returning to their command after performing a search warrant in the 113 precinct. They encountered officers from the 109 precinct along the side of the Whitestone Expressway near 22nd Road, engaging a suspect. That job began when an Uber driver in a black Toyota Highlander was parked just off the service road of the Whitestone Expressway at approximately 8:52 a.m. A male approaches the vehicle, announces a robbery, and displays what appears to be a firearm to the driver. The driver exits the vehicle and is assaulted by the perp. The driver calls 911 to report the carjacking a minute later at 8:53 a.m. The perp attempts to drive away, but the victim still has the vehicle's keys, forcing the perp to immediately return and collide with another car at the location. The perp then assaults the victim a second time in an effort to retrieve the keys, tackling the victim to the ground. Having retrieved the keys, the perp starts to slowly drive away and makes a right-hand turn onto 22nd Road. At this point, officers from the 109 are responding to the victim's 911 call about the robbery in progress. They engage the car in an attempt to make an apprehension. Detectives assigned to Queens South Narcotics see the patrol officers attempting to make the apprehension and try to assist by blocking the car in. At 8:57 a.m., officers discharge their firearms. The perp is not hit, but one of our officers assigned to Queens South Narcotics is struck one time in the right hand and one time in the left leg. He was removed here to Jamaica Hospital. This incident is recorded on body-worn camera. Blessedly, as the mayor said, our officer is in stable condition and is both conscious and alert. I am pleased to report that I met with him and his family, and he is in good spirits. He is in surgery now. The perpetrator is uninjured and was taken into custody. At this time, this incident appears to be friendly fire, as we did not recover a firearm from the perpetrator on scene. The perp in this incident is identified as 28-year-old Kevin Dubuisson. Mr. Dubuisson has a lengthy, violent criminal history with 10 career unsealed arrests, including multiple knife-point robberies and multiple assaults on police officers. At just 28 years old, he is a 4-time convicted felon. Mr. Dubuisson is currently out on parole for robbery after being released from prison in March of this year, and was actually arrested just yesterday for theft of service in Manhattan and released with only a desk appearance ticket. Importantly, prior to the criminal justice reforms of 2020, an individual out on parole would not be eligible for a DAT. Mr. Dubuisson also has documented EDP history with the department. Prior to the incident with the Uber driver, at approximately 8:40 a.m. this morning, Mr. Dubuisson attempted to steal a car from a mobile gas station on Parsons Boulevard and 20th Avenue, but was scared off by employees there. Then, 2 minutes later, he attempts to carjack a female on Parsons Boulevard, just steps away from the gas station, but the victim's husband runs outside and scares him off. It was then that he encountered the Uber driver on the service road along the Whitestone Expressway. This chain of events, which could have ended quite differently, began because a career criminal, a person who has terrorized victims for nearly a decade, was allowed to continue his violent spree. It is unconscionable that a violent predicate felon who pled guilty to 2 more robberies was out on the streets to commit his crimes today. That is criminal justice reform for you. I want to thank the entire staff of Jamaica Hospital. They are taking excellent care of our officer. And this is just another reminder of the dangerous situations that our cops confront every single time they put that uniform on. We are praying for a speedy recovery and hope to see our officer home with his family soon. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
So, complete downplay of the incident, in my opinion. Complete downplay. I mean, the main question that the media should be asking is, why did the responding 109 officers shoot at the perpetrator? Why? No firearm was recovered. No weapon was recovered. The initial job, I believe, came over that the perp did have a firearm. But if anybody worked in the NYPD, you know that most of the calls you get says perp has a firearm, and the majority of times they don't. So it doesn't give you probable cause to start shooting, never mind what's being alleged that 17 rounds went flying in the direction of detectives who just risked their life doing a search warrant. So the incident occurs where the perpetrator is driving the vehicle. Narco detectives box him in from the front, right? Detective Corey Fisher is in the passenger seat of the vehicle, right? So he's in perfect line with the perpetrator who's in the driver's seat of this vehicle, right? Narco is driving a minivan. 109 cops come from behind, so now it's just a straight line. 109 cops get out, start firing at the vehicle. Why was that initial round let go? We don't know. We know that, thankfully, Detective Corey Fisher doesn't lose his life, but he's struck twice. His partner almost could have been killed as well. They both could have been killed. What led to the shooting? Let's downplay it. Let's go back to bail reform, which all 3 of us who were standing in front of your face supported. Let's go back to all the politicians who supported bail reform that all 3 of you supported, that all 3 of you called your partners. So They're blaming this solely at the feet of bail reform, and she's talking about how unconscionable it is that this perp was still walking on the street. But then again, she doesn't talk about how unconscionable it is that the NYPD actually had this individual in their custody after he was already released from prison. NYPD had them, and they let him go. They had him with a crime, and they were so incompetent, so inept, so lazy that they just let him go. And then this incident happens, and again, we just see incompetence. We just see people that don't belong on this job, and two of our best and bravest are almost killed. One of them is severely injured. And we're going to downplay this. And this is the police commissioner, by the way. Oh, and congratulations on selling your apartment for $10.5 million. I'm sure you understand the plight of the working man and the officer out there on the street risking their life to save their family. Congratulations to you, police commissioner. But I think you guys are severely missing the mark at this press conference and going forward. I mean, what do you think about what the billionaire heiress has to say about this?
Yeah. Tish sold her apartment. The city's doing so well, so you sell your apartment in Manhattan.
For about half of what she originally wanted for it. She wanted about 25 million for it. And newspapers are reporting anywhere from 10.5 million to 11 million. Mind you, the maintenance on the apartment is $12,500 a month, and you cannot take a mortgage to buy that apartment, meaning whoever bought that apartment paid $10.5 million in cash and has enough money to spend $12.5 thousand a month. Even Triple Fatneck, when he gets out with his bum ankle, and he's making 25, 30 grand a month, won't be able to afford to live like that.
Yeah. I think there might be something even worse off in this case. And I keep thinking about Omar Edwards in this incident. And you have to wonder if those cops, that body camera footage, I agree with you, John, is never going to be released, because I think it might be even worse than we think. Because if it's on the line of similar to Omar Edwards, it might be an even bigger problem. If those cops didn't even recognize those guys as narco guys, that might be an even bigger problem on the job. And I said this before. One of my biggest fears, I worried more about getting shot by other cops, especially when I was in plainclothes, than I ever did by the perps. Especially like when I lived in the 7-1. For a time, I lived in the 7-1, and I used to just walk home or walk back to work. And one of the things I worried about was I was going to get into an off-duty incident. And in fact, there was one incident when I was driving on Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, and I witnessed a shooting. And like I was stuck in traffic, so the perp drove up on a bicycle across the street. So I didn't have time to like do anything, to jump out but I thought after that, when I was talking to the cops on the scene, I'm like, man, imagine if I had jumped out of my car and gone after him. I did try to follow him in the car, but then he Utica Avenue is a mess around rush hour. So, yeah, I think there might be an even larger issue going on with this, and I don't think they want to even approach that, and that will be an even bigger problem for the job if you have officers that can't even, common sense can't even dictate, their actions. So,
as I said earlier, it's very important that we take focus on this press conference, because there's a lot of information here that is driven to distract and deflect. And there's a lot of information here that is purposely done to shift your focus from the actual incident and focus on the perpetrator. They give you the full rap sheet of the perpetrator. They go into detail of his rap sheet to really get your focus on the perpetrator, not the actual incident, because there's a lot of context here. It's quite interesting, right? If we use that as a comparison to other incidents where police officers are involved, where police officers either fire their firearms or they're fired at, and where the perception is where the police officer looked at as heroes, you'll get the information of how much time the police officers have on the job. How many times do we hear, oh, the police officer was a 3-year veteran? When a police officer does action that's good or, God forbid, loses their life, we hear that they're a 3-year veteran. But we don't hear about the police officers incident. We haven't heard how much time do they have on the job? Who are they? What was their function in the precinct? How long have they been in the precinct? Were these actual partners working together? Now, according to credible sources that we have spoke to, about 50% of the job has less than 5 years on the job. So think about that. There is a 50% chance that those police officers had less than 5 years on the job. Why is that important? Because for the last several years under Mayor Eric Adams, the standards have been extremely lowered so that police officers could be hired and working in the NYPD because of a retention problem, because of the mass exodus. So how much time did these police officers have? That's one question I would like to know. What type of training did they receive? What was the academy like? What were the standards when they went to the academy? Are these police officers assigned to that precinct? Were they filling in that day because there's such a shortage? These are questions that have not been answered. Now, she does mention there's body camera footage, but she doesn't say we're going to view it or ever show any intention to view it. So with that being said, John, I agree. Why even mention it? But yet, if you mention it, why not play that body camera footage? Let's have full transparency. So those are questions that I have. And also, with what's recently surfaced, especially putting emphasis on Eric Sanders when he implicates the NYPD as far as having unqualified and unlicensed psychologists in this hiring process. I would like to know, were there any issues with these police officers with their hiring? Were they hired by qualified psychologists, unqualified? Did they get as Ron Layson said, an NOPD of pre-disqualification? Were they disqualified? Did a commanding officer or the executive board give these police officers an override to become police officers? There's a lot of questions here that were not answered. And that's why they never get to the root of the problem. And this whole press conference is geared in a way to distract you, deflect you, and shift your focus from the real issue. I mean, think about that. Any friends in the chat right now, just think about prior incidents. Let's talk about the murder of Officer Islam, posthumously promoted to detective. He had less than 5 years on the job. He was referred to as a veteran. And yet, in this incident, we don't hear about the police officers, how much time they have on the job. We don't hear anything about the police officers. They don't want you to focus on that because I'm sure, John, Marlon, I'm sure, I guarantee it, I would put my money, they have less than 5 years, and I question, was that their tour? How many hours did they work? How many hours, especially with this shortage? Were they assigned from another precinct? These are questions that not have been answered. I would highly doubt, especially with the inception of the NCO program, that police officers are supposed to be assigned to their steady sector so that they know their area. I highly doubt these police officers are specifically assigned to that sector, or are they even assigned to that precinct? These are questions.
Class 8311 says, my brother and I always joke the most important day to have your vest was at the range. I mean, I think a lot of cops say that the most dangerous day they have in their career is at the range. And because you're standing there with people who are untrained, shooting their firearm. That's why when people are like, oh, every cop should have an assault rifle, I'm like, absolutely not. Every cop should learn how to use the 9mm that they have on their waistband. Some cops could have it, but definitely not all of them. And, I think we've all been there. We've all been there. We're like, how the hell does this person have a gun and they're shooting my target and they're 2 lines over? Like what? Like I myself have stepped back on the range and I'm like, I've raised my hand, put my holster in my gun. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not shooting next to this person. They hit my target. I just don't feel comfortable. They don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm not getting shot today. And so yeah, I mean that's something that always comes. But I think when we listen to them deflect on all of this, you have to really sit to yourself and say, is this a competent agency? Is this an agency I could trust that's telling me the truth about the crime numbers, about crime that's taking place? And it's obviously not, because, we're sitting here saying they're never going to release the body camera. Who owns that body camera ultimately? We do. Who employs Jessica Tisch? We do. Who employs the police officers? We do. I want to see those body cameras. I want to know what led to the shooting. Why do I want to know that? My niece is in New York City. I'm in New York City often driving around. My wife's in New York City. My mother-in-law's there. My sisters are there. My friends are there. I want to know that if one of them gets pulled over, they're not just going to get shot. I want to know that we have competent, well-trained police officers. I want to see those body cameras. We're entitled to those body cameras. You said that they were there for transparency factors. Then they should be there for transparency. And, as cops, we all, oh, no, part of investigation. Screw your investigation. You opened up the can of worms, and you wanted to play in the court of public opinion. And now here we are. We're in the age of transparency. Be transparent. I want to see. If cops are held totally accountable for every round they release, why aren't those cops being held accountable for the alleged 17 rounds they released? Why are we deflecting to bail reform, which you all supported? Why are we deflecting to Albany, which you all supported? It's an absolute joke. And then she calls up Scott Monroe, who's obviously came from out east, right? He came from out east. Doesn't look like he should be at this press conference, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. I question the coherency of these statements here. And clearly, the union who represents the detective who was shot by his own department is clearly in line with what the mayor and the police commissioner saying, almost like they pre-gamed in the middle. Almost like they're like, all right, we're going to blame Albany. Go up there and blame Albany. Don't talk about the crossfire. Don't talk about the lack of training. Don't talk about the fact we let him go after we arrested him and he should have been arrested the night prior. Don't talk about any of this. Just talk about Albany. And here comes the Detective Endowment Association president, Scott Monroe.
Good morning. My name is Scott Monroe. I'm the Detective Endowment Association president. I have a message for Albany. Come off your vacation now. Get up in Albany, and let's start working to protect our police, our detectives that are out there working every day. In fact, this detective, thank God he's okay today. Okay, he was out working, protecting the people of the city of New York this morning, executing a search warrant. And now he's sitting upstairs in surgery. We need your help in Albany. It's just not about retaining police officers. We want police officers to be safe. That's what we're here. We want them to be safe. Just like the people of New York, we want to be safe. But we want our police officers safe. And it's about time that the legislators, it's about time Albany gets together, the Assembly and the Senate, with the governor, and start working on this. Get this fixed. It needs to be fixed right away. That should be on your first thing on your agenda back in the next couple of weeks. It actually should be started tomorrow, right now. Let's get this done. I'd like to thank the hospital, everybody, the doctors, everybody that's done a great job with our people here. We don't want to plan funerals. That's not what we're here for. We're here to protect the city of New York. Now we need your help, Albany. Thank you.
It sounds like he does want to plan funerals because what he's protecting is the complete incompetence of the NYPD. So I don't know. I thought it was completely disgraceful. He should have never even been allowed to speak, in my opinion. That was absolutely disgraceful. And if I was Detective Corey Fisher or his family, or if I was a detective right now, I'd be saying, who's our next president? And hopefully it's not anyone from this board. Let's start running somebody else because it's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah. Scott's doing what he does best, working for Eric Adams instead of working for the detectives who actually pay his union salary. Huh?
Yeah, but while he just coming in fresh from the Hamptons, like him and Adams were probably together with their boat shoes on.
Yeah. And you see him towing the same line as the others. Oh, it's Albany. Blame Albany. this is one of the reasons why I said on Friday that I think it needs to be a sheriff running this department, because you see the problem with this job is everybody's blaming, and the whole New York State justice system as a whole, everyone's blaming everyone else, and nobody's taking accountability for their own shortcomings in the system. Nobody's taking accountability for what they themselves haven't done as being a stakeholder, to use that stupid World Economic Forum term, in the system. And we see time and time again, the unions blame Albany. Eric Adams will blame the DAs. He won't actually name the DAs, but it's nobody wants to take responsibility for what they've done, or what they haven't done in the system. And one of the things the union loves to do is make undefined goals. Okay, so what do you want Albany to change, Scott? Just come right out and say it. Why don't you just come right out and say it? Why don't you name names and call people out? That's what you're supposed to do. You're saying you have these undefined goals that lead to nowhere, So I've explained to you guys my frustration with the union numerous times, and I can't understand why members continue paying these guys, because to all the problems that we've talked about with the fraternal organizations like Patrick Gordon, at least to me, they seem to be doing a lot of the work that the unions used to be doing, So I also want to, I see Mickey McMurphy made a comment in the chat about the one of the identifiers that we use to, identify MOS, the members of service out of uniform. And to that, I just want to say that it really doesn't matter if the cops themselves don't have their head in the game. If a cop doesn't have their head in the game, doesn't have doesn't really truly care about being a good cop, about understanding their area, understanding who the perps are, understanding what their job is, and they're not interested in being a good cop. They're interested in more the paycheck. Okay, then those identifiers don't even matter, because it's not like that cop would be paying attention during roll call anyway, right? So and this goes back to what we've talked about here, the importance of having cops who want to be there, and not just want to be there for the paycheck. They want to be a good cop. They strive to be a good cop by learning, understanding their area, and again, understanding what's expected of them and what they have to do, and bettering themselves, and this goes back to, again, the hiring standards and the entire lack of standards and leadership not having done its job. So it doesn't matter what that identifier is if you don't have people who have their head in the game and are doing what they're supposed to do.
Let's break this down to several layers. As I said earlier, I think the press conference is very important to focus on, because they are trying to shift your focus. And what's interesting about this press conference, it's anything but organic. It was a clear effort to collaborate with each other to come up with a narrative. It's clear and obvious from what we heard here that Scott Monroe, the Detective Endowment Association president, along with Mayor Eric Adams, along with Jessica Tisch, had a conversation about the narrative before they gave this press conference, because that was not organic. Because if it was organic, we should have heard from Scott Monroe to look over at Mayor Eric Adams and say, while we do have problems, yes, you're right, we do have problems in Albany. I have a problem here because one of my detectives almost lost their lives because a fellow police officer, shot him. So I want to know, when was he hired? What were the standards under how he was hired? Did he qualify that psychological? Was there an override? What were the standards? What type of training has he or she received? And I would like to know, ultimately, you ready? Here's the one big missing link. And John said it earlier. What happened? The big question, right, John? Right, Marlon? What happened? All you heard of this press conference was scapegoating. They found the scapegoat. You know who the scapegoat was? Albany. Not even the perp. The scapegoat. Somehow we're blaming Albany. Are these contributing factors to having perpetrators in the street, to having more crime? Yes. But does that have any impact on a police officer who pulls that trigger? The police officer. When a police officer engages into a vehicle pursuit, who puts their foot on the gas and decides to continue or not? The police officer and also the leadership. It's the same thing. If you're an active police officer and you're watching this, you're responsible for your foot on the gas. You're responsible when you pursue a perpetrator. You're responsible for those rounds that come out of your firearm. It's not Albany. It's not anyone else but you. You need the training, you need good judgment, and you need good discipline. And I say judgment. Were these police officers hired under the appropriate conditions? Were they hired by qualified licensed psychologists? Were they hired? Did they have any psychological backgrounds themselves? These are questions that we have to ask because this has surfaced. And these are questions that have solidified the doubts that we've had, especially since 2018. When I say constantly, they're hiring those that are meek, timid, and docile. I would like to know, how many hours did those police officers sleep before they were involved in this incident? Where did they work? What's their actual tour? Are they actually assigned to that precinct? There's a lot of questions that we should be asking. These are questions that have been revealed. And the most important question is what we've been saying this entire show. What happened? Did the unarmed perpetrator simulate a firearm and point it at the police officers that they fired? Was this perpetrator in close proximity to the narco officers? And yes, great question, Marlon. Was there a confrontation challenge situation where the police officers accidentally shot their own, thinking it's a potential perpetrator? But ultimately, we don't know because they didn't tell us ultimately what happened. The most important question, they told you there's body camera. So guess what? They know what happened, but we don't know what happened. So this is anything but transparency. And this is a concerted effort where the union, Mayor Eric Adams, and Jessica Tisch got together with a narrative before that press conference. Anything but organic.
You know, the other thing here is like, you know, obviously when you do plainclothes work, uniform member is always in control, right? We're taught that. Queens Narco just got off of a search warrant. So, you know, I know it used to be NYPD policy. I don't know if it currently still is, but every search warrant I did on, we were in plainclothes, but we had our raid jackets on. We had our vests on. We looked like cops. We didn't look like we weren't cops. Right? So these detectives coming fresh off a search warrant, they hear the job come over, they go to assist the 109. And I'm being told that now the 109 and the unions are all trying to push the narrative that the gun that they saw and why they shot was because they saw Detective Corey Fisher with a gun. Didn't know he was a cop. So is it possible? Is it possible that Detective Corey Fisher did a poor job of identifying himself? It's possible. But I don't think he wasn't screaming police, 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 police. I don't think his car, I don't think another perp is boxing in that car and helping you to apprehend the individual. Right? And when you do plainclothes work, I think that is one of the most important things you could do. Shield out. The reason we tuck our shields around our neck is so that you could get to it easily. If it's not on your neck, it's on your weak side gun belt so that you could get to it easily, or it's in your pocket when you're off duty on your weak hand so that you could get to it easily. Because obviously if you have to draw your firearm's going to be on your dominant side, and you need your weak hand to be able to show your badge, pull it out, and also you're going to verbally police, 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 police. Now the police commissioner clearly said here, and the mayor clearly said here that they shot at the perp. I'm sure this is going to be a rough day, and this is going to be a rough investigation for UFID. That's the NYPD's Firearm Investigation Division. Because guess what? You, like Group 1 of the Internal Affairs Bureau, are going to have to paint that narrative. You're going to have to reverse investigate to formulate the narrative that this department wants you to have. Right? And where's the integrity in that? Is that strength and honor? Is that how we honor each other? Is that how we keep each other safe? Is that caring about cops? Or is that protecting a mayoral bid? To me, that's blatant corruption. If you're going to sit there and tell me, I want to see the body camera, because I know what I'm going to see. I'm going to see two detectives that are clearly police officers that are yelling, police, 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 put your effing hands up, and are no threat to the responding cops. And yet, 17 rounds allegedly were fired at them. And we're going to see lie after lie after lie after lie to protect the mayoral bid. And what does it do? It not only endangers the public, it endangers your own. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. So God bless you guys and girls that still do plainclothes work. But just think about this. Think about this. And you think that now plainclothes, narco, warrants, gang, you think that when they're going to respond to these jobs, they're not thinking about this now? This isn't going to be in the back of the head. Like, I don't know if we should go there, bro. They might pop around at us. They might be playing Call of Duty, bro, and they're the worst guy on the team, and they don't care. They don't care about offing their own teammates. Not thinking, not supposed to be in this game. And you're right, Eric. It falls the reason that this training is diminished and the reason the quality of the cops are diminished falls directly at the feet of Eric Adams. I put out a clip the other day of his 2021 campaign where he's talking about how he needs a more diverse department. He doesn't want people like Scott Monroe and the rest of the union presidents who reside outside of New York City and are white. He doesn't want all the unions. He doesn't want people like that, but they want him, but he doesn't want them. And he wants to pull resources from a diverse community, traffic agents and school safety agents. That's who he thinks should be the police. Not you. Oh, you live in Long Island and you work out and you played football and you wrestled. No, not you. You're white. We can't have you. And you're telling me that this artificial diversity that's been forced through lowering standards, lowering the psychological, lowering all this, didn't lead to this shooting? Lowering the training, lowering the experience, because we don't want those evil white guys like Eric Adams said. We don't want, he didn't say cracker at that time. He said it in private meeting where he didn't know he was being filmed, but he said it publicly on the news, and you people support him, and you think that he cares about you and he loves the police, right? So yeah, he doesn't want any Scott Monroe or Scott Monroe's son or any of them from out east.
Yeah, the job thinks so little of a street cop that they believe like you can take any traffic agent and just give him a gun belt and a shield and now he's going to become a cop, and that's so misguided, So yeah, last night I happened to be in Manhattan, not willingly, by the way. I had to drop a relative home, but I happened to drive past Rockefeller Center, and as you know, there's a paid detail over there, right? So I noticed the paid detail was sitting on a bench, right? He's sitting on a bench looking at the street. There are people behind him, and the place is still open. There are people walking by, He's sitting on a bench, and he has no view of what's behind him. And I'm like, I can't believe this, I was almost tempted to get out and be like, bro, what are you doing, I understand you might be tired because those are 12-hour tours, but did nobody teach them to go stand in the cut when you're against a wall? I when I see that, I'm like, where's the training on this job? And this you think you can just take a traffic agent and make them a cop. Now, I've seen plenty of traffic agents just sitting down anywhere, because maybe they're tired, whatever. But you think you can take that mentality and become a street cop and it's fine to just go do that? It's tactical to just go do that. It's misguided and it's part of the problem with this job. You know, they just don't the disrespect for the street cop. You know, and something else, the fact that we no longer have plainclothes officers in precincts is I think has contributed to the unfamiliarity with cops with seeing other cops in plainclothes. You know, because now we literally have a generation of cops who aren't familiar with anti-crime guys running around in their precinct, you know? So, and we're talking to 109 is where this incident happened. Now, the 109, maybe I've never worked in the 109, but I've driven around it a couple times. And, you know, the 109 doesn't look like a place where narco is hitting doors every day or where they're going to be in a precinct every day. So you have to wonder how familiar those guys are with plainclothes, especially if the officers who were involved in the shooting are brand new, which more than likely they came on within the last 5 years. So and also how many times even in our careers did the job in our careers as patrol cops in uniform and, you know, answering radio runs in a sector car, were we given some sort of plainclothes training so we could be familiar with the tactics and maybe what it's like to be in that role? Well, you're not, unless you're yourself or being plainclothes qualified to go on to a specialized unit. So this lack of preparation has always been an issue in the department. This lack of training has been an issue, but I think it's even worse now that the department has removed plainclothes officers from precincts, and the fact that we don't have the personnel and we don't have that experience in the precincts from elder cops who've been there and done that, you know. So I think what we're clearly seeing in that press conference is everybody on the same program, and again, it's you got to reelect Eric Adams at all costs.
As I like to say, and that's what I wanted to get into, you're spot on, Marlon. Spot on, brother. That is a major hole in the NYPD right now. The death of anti-crime was June 15th of 2020. Former police commissioner Dermot Shea gave away the store, complete sellout. One of the many chiefs that bend the knee figuratively or actually bent their knee literally to the public. And Eric Adams, who was a former cop captain, supposedly the uniform, had the opportunity to bring back anti-crime, but instead he brought this quasi-anti-crime team in some silly uniform, and it's exactly that. We lost that ability to pass the torch, to have those type of units in a precinct where police officers would be familiarized and see the tactics and understand how plainclothes cops move, because they move in a particular way. So while John's right, you know, I conducted search warrants many years as an anti-crime sergeant and special operations lieutenant. I brought my windbreaker, and I would wear my windbreaker. And I will say this: the one thing though, after the search warrant, I didn't have that windbreaker with me. It was in the trunk, and I'll tell you why. If you remember those NYPD windbreakers that we had, it was that like inside like polyester, like thick, almost like fake wool. And I was working housing, and if you during a search warrant, immediately once ESU made entry and once the apartment was secure and we started to do our search, I took that windbreaker off right away because I was sweating. You were dying of sweat in housing wearing that thing. If anybody here, if you're active or retired, you know what I'm talking about with that windbreaker. So most likely, I would say those narco police officers did not have those windbreakers on when they left, unless it was cool out that day. They put it back on. I don't know the weather conditions, but being that it's summer, I'm going to assume maybe they didn't have it on. But it doesn't matter. It goes back to what you're saying, Marlon. The cops in the precincts, especially a precinct like the 109, which is not one of the most voluminous or heavy precincts in comparison to other precincts in the city. Listen, all precincts have their problems and have their issues, but they're not getting the same volume. The cops are definitely not familiar with plainclothes police officers because they don't have anti-crime assigned to their precincts anymore, which is spot on. I think you nailed it. Even Rob Lukash, Finance Unfiltered family, he says it also. He says you nailed it. You sure did nail it. It's exactly a major problem. But again, let's go back to the press conference where Jessica Tisch says there's body camera. And we know clearly if that body camera was a good look, because optics is more important than policy, especially in this administration. If the optics were good, that body camera would have been played. It would have been, look, it would have been a gotcha moment. But since they did not play that body camera, it's very telling to me that we do not know what happened, nor did they even try. They didn't even try to give us a narrative and play out exactly what happened. We're missing a lot of holes. They told you what happened with the perpetrator's past history. They told you about the revolving door. But they didn't tell you what happened on this day with the perpetrator. That's what we want to know. Where is that body camera footage? So we have to put pressure on them to show it. We need some real transparency. There's a lot of information here. These police officers deserve better. The police officers deserve good training. They deserve good leadership. And so does the public. The public deserves all these attributes. But in order to have good police officers to call them New York's finest, we need to have the best training. We need to have applicable training. We need to have qualified, licensed psychologists. We need to have transparency. We need to have constant training and consistent training within the police department. To train up police officers once a year and to check a box is not good enough. For Juanita Holmes, with a, I think it was about 3 years ago at this point, or maybe it was 2 years ago, when former Chief Juanita Holmes said that 1.5 miles was not necessary in the police academy, I would like to know what is necessary. What training are the police officers getting now? Are they trained in how to avoid potential friendly fire incidents? Are they trained that every round that ejects from that firearm they're responsible for? Are they trained in firearm discipline? Are they trained in situational awareness? Because one thing I learned in the Marine Corps that I carried over to the police department was never point your weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot, and you keep your finger off that trigger until you intend to fire. So why was the finger on that trigger? Why did they fire? What happened? And the reality is, do we know what happened? We don't know what happened. They have not released that information. Even without the body camera, they still didn't tell us what happened. We know nothing. So that's why we have all these questions. We have all this conjecture. And at this point, the lack of transparency is what is creating more emotional distress for the police department, for the public. That's why we have questions. So it's time, Jessica Tisch, release that information.
So we're going to get into why you guys watch the Finest Unfiltered now, because, you know, while they're sitting there telling you that bail reform is the reason that this officer was shot, and bail reform was the reason that this perpetrator was out on the streets that night. So it's true. He was arrested for fare evasion the day prior. He was released thanks to bail reform, even though he was out on parole. And what happens is he's involved in 2 other carjackings that day. 2 other robberies of vehicles. Stole 2 other vehicles. So one vehicle, he crashes at a construction site in the confines of the 1st precinct. So there's a paid detail detective, narcotics detective, working a paid detail right there. The narcotics detective allegedly, and this is all coming from very credible sources. So the narcotics detective who's doing the paid detail apprehends the perpetrator. This is hours before this happens. This is, the morning of. So the paid detail apprehends the individual who just stole the car and crashed it into a construction site and places him in handcuffs. Calls over the 1st precinct. 1st precinct comes over to the scene. This is all on body camera as well. All captured on body camera. They know this at the press conference at this time, but no one's released it. No media has reported about it, even though they're also aware of these allegations, they're aware that they're also very, very credible sources who have direct knowledge. I'll just put it that way. So the 1st precinct responds to the scene, at which time it's alleged that the narcotics detective tells the 1st precinct I think the car's stolen. I think the car's stolen. So the first precinct questions the perp, who has no ID on him. They run the name that he gives them, and he comes back. He doesn't have a suspended license. They don't run his criminal history, which would show that he was just arrested for fare evasion. And if he was just arrested for fare evasion, why would he be driving a car hours later? They disregard the fact that the car is not registered to him, not insured to him. Totally disregard to it. Don't get raised up for 1 second that, hey, this is possibly a stolen vehicle. Oh, there's a cop on the scene who's telling me that it looks like it's a stolen vehicle. There's a cop who has him in handcuffs. So what the first precinct decides to do is issue a summons for fail to properly give over a document, whether it's the license, whether it's the registration, whether it's the insurance card. Fail to present document is the official code in VTL. So they issue the summons, and they take the perp out of handcuffs. They issue him a summons even though he's unidentified, right? Because you don't have ID. I don't know how you give a summons to someone that doesn't have ID. And they just let him go on his way. Now, the stolen car, in all fairness, was reported. However, the alarm had not been put on it yet. But doesn't excuse the fact that you should have been raised up, regardless of the fact that the narco detective who was doing the paid detail had him in handcuffs, saying, I think the car's 16, meaning the car's stolen. That's basically what he said. The car's stolen. I think the car's stolen. Regardless of that fact, you have a guy who's completely evasive in all your questioning. He's not giving you ID. He's not the registered owner. I'm sure if you ask some questions related to where the car was registered or what address it came back to, he wouldn't know any of those details. And there was zero effort to contact the registered owner of the vehicle. Because if they had done that to see if, in fact, this person had permission, they would understand that they have a GLA, an unauthorized use of a vehicle. And this incident would have also never happened, the pursuing incident later. And Detective Corey Fisher would also never have been shot, and his partner never been shot at also. So complete, disgusting, inept, clumsy incompetence of the NYPD, and they're covering it up.
Yeah. Wow. I don't even know where to start on this one. Boy, that's... You see how laziness, like one cop's laziness, it could get another cop killed, you know? And there's so much issues going on in this one, you know? I have to wonder, I have to wonder really here is if they were instructed to do something from supervisors at first. Because I mean, I cannot in this day and age when these young guys are afraid of their shadow, right? And they know they have this footage on body camera. I'm very curious if they made this call on their own, and I have my doubts because the minute paid detail says they're holding one, the supervisor would respond. Yeah. So I wow, this is like crazy. But it's also worth noting that the first precinct is one of those precincts that I think they have one of the lowest numbers for the year. And I have to wonder, because they have the lowest numbers, how much manpower they lost to Summer All Out. And if they lost manpower, what's the coverage like on that platoon? Because think of it, if the platoon is short on coverage, then the supervisors the desk and the patrol supervisor probably wouldn't want you to get off patrol, because who's gonna take that sector if you only have 3 sector cars for the night and one goes down because they have a collar? Who's gonna be answering calls in that sector? Now you'd only have 2, and God forbid, like the hot rookie driver of one of the supervisors has to get in a car and make up for that sector that's now processing paperwork. So I'm gonna we're gonna be talking about this for a while, but I have to wonder if there was a bigger agenda at play here from the precinct supervisors to keep that car on patrol due to a lack of coverage.
That's the point to what I was alluding to earlier, that without transparency leaves too many questions. And with these questions, it gives us cause to probe and dig deeper. Thanks to this podcast, thanks to our friends and listeners that we're actually sitting here saying, you know what, let's dive into this and start looking at the bigger picture and start looking at what preceded this incident that we actually got to this point. And we see failure upon failure. The question is, were the failures because of inadequacy? Were the cops inadequate? Was the leadership inadequate? Were they just exhausted and tired? Maybe they're just overworked and exhausted at this point. They want to get this guy out of there. And that's why they're lazy and inadequate, not thinking properly. But these are questions that we don't know because we were never given the information. We don't know what happened. So it's all conjecture. That's why I asked earlier, and I think that question needs to be posed. With this mass exodus, with the retention problem, with the shuffling of cops being displaced around the city to fill in holes, were those cops assigned to the 109 precinct? Was that their sector? How many hours did they work? Were they exhausted? I would like to know. Were they coming off a double shift? Who knows? These are questions we don't know. Were they working excessive amount of days? These are questions we don't know. Did they ever have any training to identify plainclothes officers? Probably not. But there's a lot of holes here. Johnny, you posed a great question. How did they actually let him out on that type of summons? And to me, it's laziness and inadequacy. And it could be from the cops. And Marlon, I agree with you. I think this was probably most likely. And because most of the job has less than 5 years on the job, and especially a precinct like the first precinct where there's a lot of scrutiny and particularly paperwork in Manhattan South is much more critiqued than other places. It's supposed to be the epicenter of the world, and especially Manhattan South, highly prolific. There's always brass around. You would think that the leadership would actually would have oversight in that. So I find it hard to believe that the cops just did it on their own. I'm with you, Marlon. I would say most likely the leadership was involved and said, hey, we got to keep these cars moving. We're shorthanded, or whatever the case is. Let's get this guy out of there. But clearly, it shows that all these issues going on with retention, mass exodus, hiring standards, lowering standards, shuffling of cops, failed leadership are byproducts of a police officer, a detective almost losing their life. So while we say it's friendly fire, it's anything but friendly. Look at all these things that are going on behind it. And we have a concerted effort by Mayor Eric Adams, Jessica Tisch, and Scott Monroe to blame Albany. They found the scapegoat and not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is all these contributing factors that we discussed today. And until these problems are fixed, and I think, John, you said it earlier. You're 100% right. If you're still in plainclothes in the NYPD and you're active right now, this is the monkey on your back. And you have to ask yourself, if you respond, you assist, or you initiate an intrusive police work, and you're in plainclothes, you have to ask yourself, who's your enemy? Is it that potential perpetrator? Is it those cops responding? Is it both? It's a scary time.
So you know who will be presented as the enemy by the leadership of this city and the upper echelon of the NYPD? It's us. It's us. It's us three. You hear it here from Juju, this loser. You want to hear what he has to say? He says, so many anti-cop sentiments in a supposedly pro-cop podcast make it make sense. Perhaps this small podcast that gets more views than WABC radio is contributing to the anti-cop sentiment we experience today. So painting the fact that we're asking for competent police, we're asking for police that don't try to kill their own members. We're asking for police that don't kill cops. We're asking for cops that don't shoot for absolutely no reason. We're asking for cops that actually earn their paycheck, that do what they're paid and trained to do when the public expects them to do. If asking for cops to do their job when someone steals your vehicle and actually conducts a proper investigation, if that makes us anti-cop, then I guess we're anti-cop. Because you know what? It's absolutely ridiculous. You know what we are? We're pro-good police. We're pro-police that when you call 911, you're like, wow, thank God for those guys. Thank God. When I call and my car gets stolen, and then 2 hours later, I'm getting a call from the first precinct. Yeah, we got the guy here. This is what happened. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Those are the cops we want. We don't want the cops that aren't going to do their job. And Marlon, I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong. I hope your assessment is wrong. Oh, we need these guys on patrol. So let's not get this person their car back. Let's not arrest the person that stole their car. Let's just let them go with a summons. I hope that no supervisor was involved in that. Because if they were, I'm going to give you another anti-cop sentiment. They should be terminated. They should be fired. Because it's the last thing a supervisor should do. It's the perfect case for defund the police. Who needs you? Who needs you? I need to pay you to do what? To do what? We need to pay you for what? So that you could give me a hard time when I call and tell you my car was stolen and then let the guy that stole my car go? That's what it is? And then later on, when the cops who are actually trying to do their job, and yeah, they might have had their windbreakers off, but they definitely didn't have their shields off, and they definitely didn't have their guns off, and they definitely looked like cops. And I would have spotted them as cops right away. I don't care if they had their windbreakers on or not. They were just coming off a search warrant. They didn't have their gun away. They didn't have their cuffs away. They didn't have their vest off. They didn't have none of that stuff. And I even hear that they had gun belts on. Then later on at that time, you start just letting rounds go for you don't even know why and unaccountable. And you know what you do? You blame the guy that you shot. Yeah, if that makes me anti-cop, you're damn right I am.
Yeah. Shout out to those narco guys. In both instances, they did their job, and shout out to those guys still doing the dirty work, and still being active, The one thing you can't say in this instance is the narco guys in both cases did what was expected of them, and I just don't understand this one, When I was on patrol, if narco guy came up to me and told me something like that, I'm like, bro, that's a home run, That's a home run. You all you got to do is do a little investigative work, That's all you got to do, So I can't understand why cops would do that, especially in this day and age when they know you can't shit can things, and you especially can't knowing that you're on video camera, okay, and you're on that body camera, okay.
But don't worry, Marlon, he's vaccinated, so you needed to be fired. You needed to be terminated. They're great cops. They did a great job. Don't worry. They just almost killed 2 detectives and they let perps walk out of the thing. You're the bad guy, Marlon.
Yeah. And you know what's crazier? You have to wonder. Now, this incident, it made its way to the news. But think of how many other incidents don't make their way to the news, Other instances where corners are cut like this and there's laziness or there could be an agenda at play here to not have that crime being reported. Think how many instances where you see cops might have gotten hurt later on, or civilians gotten killed later on because we didn't document something, or we shit can't some crime is some apprehension is shit can't, and that's it. I mentioned the term kakistocracy months ago, but this is clearly an example of it right here, okay? Because you have multiple failures. You have failures on the precinct level, and now you have the attempts to cover it up by the executives in who the leadership of the city. And you just got to say good luck to New York, because if this gets worse, if you get an Eric Adams 2.0 in office, how bad is this going to get? Okay, because again, the people in charge are running cover so that he can get reelected again. Okay, so what are they going to do under Eric Adams 2.0 to make sure that his legacy is secure? Okay, and as we've seen before, they've shown they've shown you that they're willing to do just about anything to do it. You know, they don't care. We don't care if Eric Adams' policies as mayor has made the job tougher for you as a cop or for you as a precinct commander or executive in the NYPD. They don't care. Unions, in the case of unions, they don't care. Okay, they've got to do what they got to do to keep him in place, to keep him reelected. So what are they going to do when we have a second administration of Eric Adams, and these failures aren't systematic failures are not being addressed, and you have a legacy to defend? Okay, so now good luck, New York City. We're going to need a lot of it.
As I stated earlier, that it's important to watch the press conference. Well, it's important what we're saying here also, because the goal and the concerted effort, obviously, and it's apparent from this press conference, is to shift your focus to what is really going on, the root of the problem. And that's why it's the jujus of the world that will push out rhetoric that it's this podcast is anti-cop. And for some, they may believe that if they get their information third person, but our friends and listeners that count, that watch this podcast, know damn well that what we're saying is important, because we're getting to the root of the problem here, and we're talking about what really needs to be fixed. We need training. We need good judgment. We need discipline. We need the finest police officers. We need an organic, suitable police department that is diverse in qualifications, not diverse in image. I don't care if they're white, black, purple, gay, straight. I care that they're qualified. I care that our police officers have the characteristics and traits to be police officers. As far as image, who cares? It should be organic in qualifications. If you're a police officer out there right now and you're in plain clothes, it's a scary time, because not only do you have to fear the perpetrators, but you have to fear your own. And you have to fear your own even more. 17 rounds were fired, and we don't know exactly what happened. Think about that. Think about it. We don't know what happened. None of us at this point know what happened. Juju and the other Jujus of the NYPD, they know what happened. They have the body camera. They saw it, but yet they never told us what happened. What led to a police officer, or how many police officers? We don't even know. Was there more than one police officer that fired? We don't know anything. How many police officers were there? They didn't tell us anything. We know nothing. All we know is that we have a recidivist perpetrator and that Albany is to blame. That's what they want you to believe. And that's why there's rhetoric that will be put out there and pushed out there by the jujus of the world to put blame as another scapegoat, this podcast. Oh, they're anti-cop. They're racist. They're telling you the cops are no good. And you're right, John. Spot on, brother. We want good cops. Police should police their own. We want good cops because we don't want a dead detective. That's the difference. We actually love, don't we say it often, John? You and I say this quite often. Marlon, too. We love police officers, not just in death. We love them in life. So we don't want a detective to die. But maybe Juju does. Maybe the Jujus of the world, they want to celebrate the death of a police officer, say how much they love them, and then use that to catapult themselves and create their own self-image and self-promotion. But here, we care, and we don't want a detective to die. And you know what? I don't even want a detective to get shot, because to me, that's not a win, because that detective still lost that day. Yes, lucky to be alive, but he got shot by his own. That could be avoided.
Dude, it's infuriating, bro. It's infuriating, because you know what? You're so right, dude. You know, Juju's up here. Oh, Eric, be honest. You want the video to make more content? We don't need to make more content. You guys generate everything. You guys make your own memes. Kaz Daughtry on the cover of a fashion thing, like that he's a fashion guru. Like we don't have to make a meme about that. I could just retweet that. That's the meme. The meme is it's a joke. The kid wears embroidered everything, taxpayer funded everything. The kid's an idiot. He can't dress. He can't speak. He's unqualified. We need more content. We want a cop dead. No, obviously you guys do. Obviously you guys do. So you could post photos of yourself at the funeral with your stupid embroidered shirt, telling everybody who you are. I'm the chief of department. I'm the chief of patrol. I'm the deputy mayor of this. Everybody knows who you are because you made such fools of yourself. You could wear a mask and people know who you guys are. I mean, we know who you are when you're Frankie Farillo on Instagram or Juju on here. I mean, you guys are disgusting. You guys are an absolute joke. Deflection. And, and everyone's in here like, I blame city council. I blame the politicians. I don't. You know who I blame? I blame the coward leadership that went along with all of this. I blame the supposed men, the supposed cops. I blame all of them who went along with every step of all of this bullshit, knowing that it was bullshit. And they did it for 12 years and they didn't say a word. They didn't bend that knee once. They bent that knee once physically, but they bent that knee over and over and over again. You know the old line, a coward dies many times before his death, but the valiant die but once? How many times you think an NYPD chief has died? How many times? Thousands, cut after cut, ripping their soul out, and they went along with it. And even this, sitting there at that press conference, LePetri should be ashamed of himself. Everybody standing up there and not saying a word should be ashamed. Don't tell me you want a cops. Don't tell me you give a shit about cops, any of you. You care about your own pockets. You care about your own celebrity. You care about the 2% and the 3%. And John Shell's on Instagram, who allegedly John Shell's on Instagram under the name Frankie Farillo, talking about how Marlon doesn't have a pension. I have a diminished pension. Sal doesn't have a pension. You could take that pension. You're never going to be able to sleep at night. It could be $1 million a month. You're never going to, because you can't live with yourself. That's why you're up drinking all night long, tweeting at us like a loser. I sleep very well with my small pension. Sal sleeps very well with no pension. Marlon sleeps very well with no pension. Eric sleeps very well with his diminished pension. You have to live with yourself, you coward.
Yeah, absolutely. I said this before. We may not have, we may have diminished pensions or may not have our pensions, but you guys, your legacy isn't going to look too great in the pages of history. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have fat triple necks either.
Yeah. Yeah, and you yourselves have to look at yourselves in the mirror and account for what you did. Yeah. But shout out to Crazy 107, good friend of the podcast, for his $4.99 to the podcast. Says upper echelon Chell crew angry in the chat for then calling out their garbage incompetence. Yeah. And by the way, Chell himself, we've said this before, Chell himself has tried to displace our criticisms of the executive leadership in 1PP as us being hard on the cops, and that's not the case. Okay, we're tough on the leadership because it's the leadership, it's their shortcomings that has put the department in a place where it is right now. Now, I also see that comment from David Sarney, who says that city council created this mess. Now, I agree with you. The city council contributed to the mess, but there are a lot of people who did also, and there's a lot of people who refuse to do the job that they're supposed to. Now we don't have a time machine, so we can't go back and rewrite the past. But there are things that can be done now, and the unions should be speaking out now about all these problems, but they're not. Last week we saw the Captain's Endowment Association just come out and in favor of Eric Adams again. And what boggles my mind about that is that here's a guy, a mayor, who's made the lives of precinct commanders and executives harder. Okay, when you as a precinct commander have less people, when you have less coverage, you're gonna have to make some hard choices that might get you in trouble. And as we've said in the last go around, the choices made in the first precinct here might be because they don't have enough manpower. So here we see the Captains Endowment Association now supporting Eric Adams again, and think how much stress their membership are going through right now as a precinct commander, having to deal with this crisis right now. And has the CEA come out and said, where did they say anything when the mandate was pushing out all the veteran guys? Do they say nothing? Do they say anything now as the job hemorrhages 300 cops a month? No, they don't. They don't. So there are other people in this system that are not doing their jobs now. Okay, they're not speaking out about the problems right now, and they're not making any attempts to correct the problems right now because they don't care. What they do care about is Eric Adams and getting Eric Adams back in office again.
Which means ultimately the only ones that care about the detective are active police officers, retired police officers. This podcast, our friends and listeners, we're the only ones that really care. Because ultimately, from that day at the press conference, the message I got is they don't care. They found the scapegoat. The scapegoat is Albany. Scapegoat's the perpetrator. If they really cared, they would talk about the root of the problem and say, here's what happened. You know what real leadership is? Real leadership, as Jocko Willink says, former Navy SEAL, it's taking ownership. Where is the ownership and the leadership to say, here's what happened, here's what went right, and here where the failures are. And we're taking ownership, and we're going to fix the problem by getting better training or hiring better police officers or making sure that police officers are not burning the candle on both ends and exhausted, because these are questions we have that are unanswered. Getting to the root of the problem if they really cared. But they're not getting the root of the problem. So by finding a scapegoat means that whatever problems that are there, all the failures that we just discussed are still there. And what do we know about failures? They don't get better on their own. They actually get worse. They get worse over time. So this means that potentially this could happen again. And if it does happen again, a detective won't be so lucky and they'll lose their life. And we'll be talking about another police officer who lost their life to friendly fire. This system is not friendly at all. So we have to stop, find the scapegoat, and ultimately talk about the system. The system is a failure. And what is that system? You're looking at it right now. The system is a concerted effort to get Mayor Eric Adams reelected because it benefits self-image, it benefits self-promotion, it benefits the unions, it benefits Kaz Daughtry, it benefits Jessica Tisch. Everyone here benefits by going along and getting along with the same narrative. They all have the same narrative. How do they have the same narrative? I mean, does anybody say, wow, isn't it amazing that they all are saying the same thing? Don't you think this is rehearsed? What do you think, Juju? Obviously, this is rehearsed. This is not organic. I mean, a union president should be saying, oh my God, I almost lost one of my detectives. We've had friendly fire over several years. What do we do so this doesn't happen again? But by blaming Albany doesn't change the fact that someone pulled that trigger. And unfortunately, it's a fellow police officer that pulled that trigger. Now, does that mean I'm ultimately blaming that police officer? I'm blaming the entire system. Did that police officer get the proper training? Was that police officer did that police officer meet the requirements to be hired? Was that police officer hired by a qualified licensed therapist, licensed psychologist? Did that police officer work an extensive amount of hours? Was that police officer working where he or she is assigned? There's a lot of questions here unanswered. We're missing a lot of context. Where's that body camera? Get that body camera. We need to see it now.
Yeah, and you know why at these press conferences they should put Joe Kenny, they should have a choker on him with like a chain, and Jessica Tisch just like pulls him around at the press conference too, because that coward's sitting up there not saying a word either. So chief of detectives, yeah, all right, chief of nothing, you know, a chief cuck. That's what you should be. Again, we should get a nice tight choker and let Tisch pull you around everywhere. So let's finish this press conference. Let's see how transparent they are and if they take any questions. Let's see.
Yeah, so the two different 911 calls that we looked at, the one female from the gas station, she describes what appeared to be a firearm, and the male, the Uber driver, describes that the male perpetrator was armed with a weapon. That's correct.
Chief, is it yet clear if the officer who fired realized the narcotics officers were in fact police? And can you describe the layout? Was this a ricochet off the vehicle that the officer was in the line of fire?
Yeah, crime scene's going through that right now. We'll get the trajectory of who fired what round, but what it appears is that there was a crossfire incident. The narcotics detectives were in the front of the perpetrator car. The 109 patrol was in the rear. Right now, it appears 3 officers from patrol fired.
Can you tell us anything about the officer you mentioned? His wife is pregnant or is from how it is?
You see that? Like he has to look at. He's so afraid of her. He has to look at her for everything, and she's like, "Cut it off." You see her hand signal and looking. It controls him like a lapdog. It's disgraceful. It's almost like how Adams controls Monroe. 100 proof Monroe.
For the mayor and the commissioner, so regarding him being released following the arrest yesterday, I mean, in all likelihood, even pre-reform, he would have been arraigned and released. But is there anything about his release in March that's particularly troubling beyond the fact that he was?
Yeah, this was a guy who was a violent predicate felon, arrested 2 more times thereafter. He should not have been out on our streets this morning.
So now he's a predicate felon. In 2020, he was a justice involved individual, right? Now he's a predicate felon, real convenient, guys. Real convenient. Really convenient. So there's the end of that disgraceful press conference. And then they rush out of there like the cowards that they are, with their heads hanging shame like it should be. And then they went and lost sleep the rest of the night. Because guess what? A lot of people got a lot of comments. Yeah, 100%. We're Monday morning quarterback. I say it all the time on Monday morning. That's what I do now. That's what I do now. That's what we do now, right? We're Monday morning quarterbacks. But you know what? This isn't what we're saying. This is what your guys are saying. This is what your guys are saying about you in the locker room, in the patrol car while they're responding. This is what the rank and file thinks about you. And you earned it.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, did she call the first precinct and say that guy shouldn't have been out on the street again?
No. And now we're just gonna blame Detective Corey Fisher, who we shot. That's it. We shot Detective. We're gonna blame him. Oh, because that's it. It's it. We're just like it's the same way when we blame the rise in assaults on the cops that got assaulted. Same thing they're gonna do here. Let's blame our incompetence on the fact that this guy was out there in plainclothes. Let's blame our incompetence on that. Let's save the other cops from jail or from a bad shoot, or let everyone see what's actually happening in this department. I was out to dinner a couple times when I was in the city this week, and a lot of different people, and everyone, they were giving me command numbers, patrol numbers, like overall command numbers. There's commands with less than 50 cops. I'm like, are you kidding me? In New York City, there's a patrol command with less than 50 cops. And then what? You're going to call up Van Tull and blame him that he doesn't have any cops in his precinct? Yeah, he's fudging numbers. You didn't talk about that shit. No, let's not talk about the fudging of numbers. Let's not talk about the fudging of crime statistics. Let's talk about how you don't have any cops in your command. And the brass at 1PP, the chief of department, and Kaz Daughtry are going to pretend they don't know exactly how many cops he has in the 109? You're going to hold the CO accountable for who you allotted to be in his command.
Yeah.
Sleepy Joe, great question. That's exactly what I'm thinking. 3-man sector, question mark. FTO, question mark. All we know at this point, there was one car from the 109. It's exactly what I've been saying. How much time on the job do they have? How much experience do they have? Is that their sector? How many hours did they work? 3 cops from one car. Most likely FTO. Most likely rookies. Which alludes to what we've been saying, Marlon. They don't have any familiarity with plainclothes officers. So at this point, they keep putting an emphasis that the perpetrator was potentially armed. But what they're really telling you is, you know who was armed? Detective Fisher. That's who was armed. And that's who received fire. I mean, this is a major problem. This takes extreme discipline to have a firearm to conduct police work. So if anyone out there thinks that we have to loosen standards to make a diverse image of the police department because it's better and all hunky-dory like Tanya Meisenholder said, and we need more women and we need more people that have sex with the same sex because that's what's really important, it's not important. Qualifications are important. Characteristics and traits of those potential attributes to be an effective police officer, that's what's important. Doesn't matter who they sleep with, doesn't matter what they look like. It matters what's inside, what skills they have, what potential they have. Are they going to the police academy and getting the proper training? And while they're in a precinct, are they getting proper training from their leadership, from veteran cops, from training programs, the NYPD? We know the answer. The answer is zero. Because it's failed leadership right now, because I know I speak to sergeants and lieutenants on a constant basis. I keep them anonymous, of course. And they're working like they're cops because they're so shorthanded, so they can't be in a position of leadership. There's zero training out there right now because, for one, there's no time to even go to training because they're so shorthanded. The cops are being flopped around and passed around. And so these new cops, they're not being trained by veteran cops because you know what the veteran cops are? They're doing podcasts right now because they're no longer on the job. The veteran cops are gone. Thank you, Eric Adams' vaccine mandate. So for all the unions out there saying, well, we can't have Mamdani. We can't have Mamdani as mayor because he's going to defund the police. Your current mayor already defunded them. He already derailed. He already delegitimized the police department. Look at this picture right here. NYPD friendly fire. It's exactly what friendly fire means. Incompetence. A friendly fire incident is negligence. It's a mistake. It's not an accident. It's a mistake. It's an epic fail to shoot one of your own. And thank God that detective is alive. But if that detective lost their life, this would be an ultimate failure. And those police officers have to live with the fact they shot one of their own. And I don't ultimately blame them completely because they lack all those attributes that they need. Training, leadership, fellow good cops. And the question is, were they hired appropriately? Did they meet the qualifications? Did someone misguide them and think they should be police officers when they shouldn't? Now, if they do have the potential and they should be police officers, I don't know that. But just looking at this framework, there's a lot of questions. And without that body camera and without them telling us exactly what happened, it just leads to more questions.
Yeah. Ron Layson of the Executive Perspective brings up a great point there. In the chat, he says commands in Queens North are also stripped down right now for the U.S. Open tennis detail. Yeah. So not only are precincts short on manpower, but when we have these large-scale events like the UN Assembly, which is, by the way, it's normally around this time of the year as well, and the U.S. Open, these are even more personnel that are being stripped from precincts, and where the precinct commanders and the precincts are being asked to do even more with even less. So this is a bigger problem. And if I may, the job thinks that they can replace the lack of manpower with technocratic micromanagement tools like AI and drones and robots. Now, what are we seeing in this case? Well, it's not the drone or the AI or the algorithm or whatever that put their hands on the perp in both instances. It's humans, it's cops, okay? And as we said again last go around, the problem might be why he was released in the first place is because of lack of manpower. So the problem, so what I'm saying is that you can they have these technocratic ambitions to use these tools, but that's all they are. They're tools. And you need cops, you need boots on the ground, and you need manpower in these commands. And until you have that, we're gonna continue having more problems like this, because it's not enough. You know, those drones won't grow arms and legs and jump in a sector car and patrol. They're not going to grow arms and legs and put the handcuffs on the perps. Okay, so I think, unfortunately, I think we might see more breakdowns in the system, in the institution like this.
So what did we learn? We learned that a detective was shot by friendly fire. Someone on here saying more assumptions. Yeah, they are assumptions, because you know what? The most transparent mayoral administration in history could just clear up everything we're saying here right now and release the body camera. But you know why they're never going to? You know why they're never going to release the body camera in the first precinct? You know why they're never going to release the body camera of the shooting? Because it's going to corroborate everything we're telling you here. That's why. So yeah, right now they're assumptions. Right now they're opinions. Even when the body camera released, there are going to be a lot of opinions about it, right? If it ever is. But never be released. So we have a cop who was shot by friendly fire, detective, almost killed. Him and his partner were almost killed by friendly fire due to sheer incompetence. We had a perp who was out on the street, not only because of bail reform, but because of sheer incompetence in the NYPD. We have a failing, inept, emasculated, incompetent police department, like we've been telling you, and their numbers are greatly diminished. And the next mayor, when he steps in, is going to be like, oh my God, I should have been jumping on this podcast saying, release all the numbers, because now I have a big problem to deal with. A big problem to deal with. So yeah, are we Monday morning quarterbacking? Are we armchair quarterbacks? Absolutely. But you'd rather it be us than be some loser who just got out of college and is kissing someone's ass and just pushing whatever narrative he's told to. So these are our honest opinions. If you don't like it, too damn bad. If you have something to weigh in, weigh in. If you're just going to throw shots, you know what that tells me? We're right over the target. We're right over the target of what happened. And you know, and that's why you just throw stupid little shots, because you got nothing. You can't even debunk one argument or one opinion or make us sound stupid, because the thing is, that's actually what's happened. So anything else on this before we get off of it?
Yeah, no. You know, if they did their job, we'd have nothing to talk about. Okay. All right. So if you're angry at us, maybe you should tell John Chell to stay off Twitter, to stay off of stop trying to seeking attention from the media and go do your job. Maybe you should tell Kaz to stop with those stupid videos and actually go do his job. You know, try and leave the job in a better place than when they got there, and try to fix these issues before we end up with more detectives getting shot from friendly fire. Okay. And that's the best way to shut us up, okay? To tell them to go do their jobs.
You know what? My message is this, and my message is simple, John, Marlon. If you're in plain clothes right now, I never wore it. I got to be honest. I always wore the color of the day. I wore my shield. But if you're in plain clothes right now, you might want to win that. You might want to wear that windbreaker right now, even if it's hot out, because honestly, at this point, can you trust the nomenclature of the police department at this point? I wouldn't. Neither should you. Let's get to the next topic, brother.
Sure. So let's continue on the incompetence trail. So while we're being told that this is the greatest administration ever, NYPD cop ran over a man at the U.S. Tennis Open. Accident. Was it an NYPD vehicle that ran him over, or was it an NYPD cop that ran him over? It's an accident. I'm not going to judge people. Car accidents happen all the time. People lose their lives during traffic incidents. Could it have been avoided? We don't know. Should it have been avoided? We don't know. Because again, the department just continues to deflect, continues to not be transparent, and we're left with these questions. Is this incompetence? Is it negligence? Or is it a justified accident? I don't know. But I know one thing. I know the department, again, is going to deflect because it's election season. And it's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. There is no integrity in the city. There's no integrity in the police department. Zero. Oh, you're an anti-cop. Oh, she killed someone. What if it was your kid? What if it was your father? What if it was your mother? Huh? What? You don't care? You don't care? Oh, no, cops should be able to run people over and be held completely unaccountable, and everybody should cover it up. You don't care? I care. I want to know. I want to know.
Yeah, that's another story that's like boy, yeah. I've driven on RMP many times. That's a NYPD patrol car for those of you who don't understand the NYPD lingo. I've driven one many times at that US Open, and I'm still a little confused by this one. It's now they said the vehicle was traveling at 10 miles an hour, and again, at 10 miles an hour, I'm not sure how exactly that happens, and if this was again another shortcoming of the department's recruiting efforts, do we expect them to actually tell us the truth? Nope. And something I wonder is, we've said it before that, unfortunately, you just look at some of these cops and you see they're not in the proper shape that they need to be as a cop. Okay. So you have to wonder here, like how much that contributed to this accident. But I think, again, this is another case where you're not going to hear the full truth because, again, it reflects upon the department's recruiting and training and the quality of the product that we have right now.
You're absolutely right about the quality of the product. Now, I have a problem with out-of-shape cops. I do. Now, I'm not saying that you have to look like a Greek god and be a bodybuilder, but you should be fit. You should be physically fit. If you can't control what goes in your mouth, and diet is probably 80% of your fitness and your appearance and your health. The rest of it, obviously, is working out and good sleep. They're not getting good sleep because they're shorthanded, but working out is important. But your appearance is important. But if you can't control what you put in your mouth and your diet to have a good appearance, to be an effective police officer, how can we trust that you're going to do a good job? That goes for you, John Shell, also. If you have a fat triple neck and you can't control what you put in your mouth, how can we trust that you're going to be an effective leader for an entire police department? Again, I don't say you have to be a Greek god, but you should maintain a certain level of fitness and appearance, especially when you're wearing that uniform. But most importantly, when it comes down to this incident, it's very similar to this friendly fire incident. And the question is, what really happened? We don't know. Was it just a freak accident? It could be. I mean, it's sad, it's tragic. Was it just a freak accident? Was this person lying on the ground? Were they unconscious or dead already? Or was it just someone that was laying on the ground? Like, what was the context of this? We don't even know. But again, lack of transparency, and that's what this comes down to. When something doesn't appear to be favorable to the NYPD, we lack transparency. When something is going to be of good optics, then transparency also finally kicks in. Major problem. The entire police department is just an epic fail.
Yeah, I heard the cop has about 1.5 years on the job and has been modified since. So will we know the outcome of that? No, but we should. Because again, this is a product that we pay for, right? When you take the life of somebody, whether it's an accident or intentional, with great power comes great responsibility. And what we're seeing, it's just one thing after the other with this job. It's one set of incompetent results after it, and lies and lies and lies from the administration. Lies and lies and lies, and it just keeps happening. So, and then while we hear the historic number of low shootings. Let's talk about one shooting that's not accounted for, right? This is coming out from Crime Stoppers. If anybody knows this individual, give Crime Stoppers a call at 1-800-577-8477-TIPS, right? And what does it say? What does the tweet say? Let's see. wanted for reckless endangerment, meaning he shot a gun at somebody and didn't hit him. On Monday, August 18th, 2025, at approximately 6:20 p.m., in front of 300 East 170th Street in the confines of the 44th Precinct, an unidentified individual displayed and discharged a firearm multiple times. So that's what he did. He had a firearm and he discharged it. Now, they're saying it's reckless endangerment, like it's the 4th of July, and he was shooting just celebratory fireworks in the air. When in fact, everybody on here knows exactly what he was doing. He fired multiple shots at somebody. And guess what, people? That doesn't count as a shooting, right? It doesn't go up in the shooting numbers. So we could sit here and have the billionaire heiress and the most corrupt mayor in New York City history sit there and tell you they have historic lows in shootings, even though the last 2 weeks we've had multiple mass shootings, including this weekend, which we'll get into in a few seconds. But mass shooting after mass shooting, and again, like we've been saying, New York City and the NYPD is celebrating bad aim. Shootings aren't down. The amount of people carrying firearms aren't down. Just the amount of people who got struck by bullets are.
Yeah. And might I add, they're also carrying a higher firepower than they once did. You know, there's a shooting that's going around of Sunset Park, happened maybe 3 weeks ago, and you can clearly the perp used a Glock. Well, it looks like a Glock, but it also sounds like he had a modification to the Glock to make it into an automatic weapon. And so not only are those shootings happening, but you know, if those are starting to hit the streets like they have in places like Chicago, then it's an even bigger problem. But you know what, the fact that they're trying to obfuscate the shootings that are happening is not too dissimilar from what we talked about earlier in the first precinct. You see, the entire goal is to underreport what's happening, okay? And the entire goal, even at the precinct level with the command staff, there is again, they may think it's just to keep their numbers down or to keep them on pace to get promoted, but it's really to protect Eric Adams. You know, ultimately the goal is again, you got to keep the numbers down because Eric Adams' platform is public safety, and we've said it many times here that he's failed in the 4 years that he's there. And you know, for those of you who remain angry at us, just think of it. If Eric Adams had done what had fixed all these issues that we keep bringing up, it would have actually bolstered his public safety, his platform as a public safety mayor, instead of him having to gaslight you into believing so. Okay, so again, the like we're saying, it seems to us that the mission right now, from all levels of the leadership in the NYPD, is to maintain Eric Adams' profile as a public safety mayor and to get him reelected. And that mission, you know, it outweighs the public safety and officer safety right now.
Shout out to brother Rob Lukash. Great comment. So true. Reckless endangerment, not one of the 7 majors. Why is that an important comment? In order to have misclassification and misrepresentation of crime numbers, it's important to understand what crime numbers get reported to the FBI. So what's important, the FBI takes statistics on precincts and cities based on their 7 major felonies. And reckless endangerment is not one of them that gets reported to the FBI. Because when you shoot at someone else and you do not hit your target, that is an attempted felony assault, which would be documented as a 7 major, reported to the FBI, and that would be a true crime number. So this manipulation of crime stats, what it does is intelligent by the NYPD, and there's other blue cities doing it as well. Is it's being documented, but it's being documented and it's misrepresented. But it allows the NYPD, if it does get caught in a random audit, say, okay, it was documented, we'll reclassify it, and then that number would count. And these audits are usually random. So for every time a documented complaint gets reclassified in a random audit, how many misclassifications are not counted properly and get actually covered and concealed? So this is just a clear indication that the numbers that you're receiving are not accurate. So your eyes are not playing tricks on you. When you see crime, especially in the two indicators, the benchmarks that I always say, and those benchmarks, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, is Times Square and Central Park. And when you see shooting after shooting constantly in Times Square, that is an indicator, that's the barometer that crime is not down. And you see it with your own eyes, and you just saw it right here. You have a shooting where the intended target was not struck, and it gets classified as reckless endangerment. And the only reason it's classified is I'm sure it was actually reported and there was witnesses. Because if there were no witnesses, as John put out recently a solo video, I think you said, John, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it fall? It's the same thing. If no one sees someone fire that round, is it being documented? Absolutely not.
Oh.
And so let's talk about the 4.5 felonies a day in transit now, right? Let's see this. Let's just get your thoughts on this. So this occurs in transit. Man with a skateboard is getting into an argument with another man. The other man pulls out a knife and charges him with it. And I want you to pay close attention because there is incompetence at foot also in this video where there is an NYPD officer off to the side observing and watching all of this and takes no action whatsoever and then goes after who I believe is the victim, the male with the skateboard. Let's watch this video real quick, see what happens. Let's get your thoughts and opinions on it. So look, he's telling him, get back. Guy pulls out a knife, right? Watch this. Watch his right hand, the guy in the hoodie, right? He's talking with his left hand up. Look what he got in his right hand. He's got a knife in his right hand. He starts walking towards him. Boom, the guy cracks him with the skateboard in a move of self-defense. Guy falls. Knife falls down. He goes down on the tracks to go get it. Now the cop comes over and tells the victim to get on the ground, disregarding the guy with the knife. Now he goes after the guy with the knife after everyone starts saying he's got a knife, he's got a knife. This clearly is a felony attempted assault, felony 2, right? You have a male with a knife who's approaching a male in an attempt to stab him. What are the chances that this was documented as a felony? I'm going to give my chance of it. It's going to be 0.00%. This was documented as a dispute. Nothing about the knife, nothing about attempted stabbing. If anything, if anybody here was to get charged with assault too, it would have been a male with a skateboard defending himself from an emotionally disturbed attacker with a knife. And I don't think that happened either.
Yeah, I've many problems with this video, and the cop couldn't tell, the difference between the two. You couldn't tell the aggressive body stance of the perp, yeah, and you have your taser drawn on the victim, and you have the taser drawn, period, when the other guy has a knife in his hand. Yeah.
And the other guy's clearly backing up and wants to walk away. Look, he goes to walk away, and now the guy comes at him with a knife.
Yeah.
And good. He deserved a skateboard right to the face. He deserved a couple more after that. Make sure he doesn't get back up.
Yeah, I don't understand this. You can clearly see by the guy's body language that who's the aggressor here. And yet the cop is drawing his taser on the guy with the skateboard. This is the problem with the job right now, the training and you have these young guys who haven't been prepared adequately for what they're going to encounter on the street, and the unfamiliarity with it is a problem that could have easily gotten that cop hurt right there, because that perp could have charged at him with the knife while he's telling the victim to get down. Like, look at this. Look,
Marlon, this is another indication. It's no different than the friendly fire incident. It's everything that we've been saying. What's the training? Lack of judgment, lack of discipline. I mean, we're watching this right now in a controlled environment. I'll always be fair, right? Watch this in a controlled environment. But based on our experience, we were all cops. We can easily identify here that the adversary in the white shirt is clearly trying to defuse the situation. He can't even turn his back completely because he's faced with an armed adversary, faced with armed perpetrator. So the question is, was this cop able to identify these behavioral indicators? Obviously not. What did this cop actually see or not see? Was this cop paying attention? These are things we don't know. But we know watching here, we can make clear observation. Who's the aggressor? I mean, you could just see the behavioral indicators. You could see that the perpetrator with the knife is charging towards that kid, and he clearly has no option but to defend himself. This is terrible police work. So you know what, Juju? And the Jujus of the world, if you watch us saying that we're anti-cop again, if this makes us anti-cop, then you know what? Put me on that list, because I'm against bad police work. This is bad police work. These are things that are clearly being missed because we're lacking training and we're lacking the people that should be doing this job. And most of the people doing the job right now are meek, timid, and docile. And it takes alpha men and alpha women to do this job with proper training, proper leadership, and proper support.
Yeah. If I may quickly before you go, John, you know, how can you look at two guys and you see one guy wearing a hoodie in freaking what 80-degree weather? At least it's 80 degree. I don't know which week that was, but we had a couple of weeks in New York City where it was like humidity was like off the charts and it was hot. So you look at two guys, the guy with the skateboard in short sleeve shirt, and you see a guy with a hoodie, and you can't identify which guy, you know, not even counting the stance, the aggressive stance of that first guy with the hoodie, but he has a hoodie in 80-degree weather, you know, probably 90-degree in the subway. If that doesn't first draw your attention, I'm sorry, you may need to reevaluate your career choice here, because I know for a fact, if I get there, my eyes is automatically going to go to that guy with the hoodie in 90-degree weather first. Okay.
Absolutely ridiculous, bro. And so 2 nights ago, another mass shooting occurs in the 47th precinct in the Bronx. 5 people were shot during a mass shooting. 1 dead, 16-year-old girl, completely uninvolved. Stray bullets hit her and killed her. And only Curtis Sliwa. It's a photo of Curtis Sliwa showing up to the scene. Eric Adams was probably in Florida doing some podcast because he wasn't anywhere here. And this is the last 3.5 years. Crime's down, shootings are down, historic lows in crime. And that's all we're seeing across this country. And people are like, oh, Trump's going to save us all. Trump's going to bring in the feds. Trump did this. Look at DC. Look what he did. Is this... All right, look, he brings in the feds. What? And then what? They leave and all this remains the same? All this training... Oh, you bring in the National Guard and then what? They leave and everything remains the same? What needs to happen is the corruption in these departments need to be rooted out. The people that have proven themselves time and time again to have the inability to properly control police departments and to properly do their job, they need to be removed. I mean, this isn't rocket science here. It's really not. It's not rocket science here. We need new leadership. Leadership starts at the top. Who appointed all of the inept people in the NYPD and throughout every city agency and all of the people that were corrupt? It's Eric Adams. All roads lead back to him. Every road leads back to him. So it's absolutely disgusting. It's always a deflection. Everything's always a deflection to try to pretend that everything's all good, and it's not. You know, again, the incidents only get documented when they're egregious. And Greg Gordon even said it. He said, I'd bet my pension that the guy that defended himself with the skateboard was the one that got arrested and the other guy got cut out. I mean, I'm going to say right now, I don't even think that guy got arrested. I think they both just parted ways, and that probably wasn't even documented. Probably wasn't even documented, dude. 4.5 felonies a day in subways. Complete lie. Crime's not down. Shootings are not down. Just the amount of reports that are being taken are. And the misrepresented. And when the reports are taken, they're overwhelmingly being misrepresented.
Yeah, you just had 2 felonies in that incident. One was obviously the armed perpetrator and the gentleman using the self-defense. It's a felony, but it's a justified felony. So you have 2 right there. So I don't know how you have 4.5 in one day. But it's interesting how they say crime is down, because to my numbers, my research says that the 47th precinct shows a 50% spike in shootings in 2025 in comparison to 2024. So is the 47th precinct the anomaly in this? I doubt it. I doubt it. Crime is not down. It's a complete lie.
Yeah, and the other thing is that video has gone viral now. Now you can try and gaslight people as much as you want, but there are people who are seeing that video pop up in their feed, and you know what they're thinking? Hell no, I'm not taking that subway. So you can continue manipulating those numbers all you want, but we're living in an age of viral clips, right? And social media. And the tourists are seeing all these videos, and you think that they want to come to New York City? No, they won't. Okay. So for all you unions who are supporting Eric Adams and not speaking up against this, okay, good luck if the tourists don't want to come to New York City and spend money and put money into the ecosystem. Because the best thing, the thing that's great about tourism coming and visiting your location is they put money into the ecosystem, and they're not necessarily getting services that equate to that money. Okay, so it's like free money coming to your ecosystem, so to speak. Okay, and when that happens, when people don't want to come to New York City, then New York City is losing revenue. Okay.
It's a joke, dude. So a friend of mine was at a barbecue yesterday, and he's telling me a story about, and he's a retired cop as well, well-known retired cop, active guy. And he said he's talking to this kid, and the kid tells him a story about how he was chasing a robbery suspect, and he sees another cop standing there, and he yells, "Stop him!" And the cop doesn't stop him, and the perp gets away. And he goes up to the cop, and he goes, "Why the hell didn't you stop him?" And the cop goes, "Well, I don't speak English," and he just walks away. Because we're doing these bilateral transfers from traffic agents, right? And all of the incompetence that we're seeing stems from Eric Adams. Here's Eric Adams in 2021. And then you tell me that you're shocked that a detective gets shot by his own. Then you tell me that you're shocked that we're letting GLA perps just walk away. You tell me that you're shocked that we can't perceive the scenes properly. Tell me we're shocked that we're running over and killing people. Just tell me, listen to Eric Adams. This is the incompetent mayor of New York City, 2021. This is what he campaigned on, and most of you idiots voted for him. And our unions are doubling down on this. Listen to the discrimination out of this man and the complete incompetence.
What we've seen play out in the past week, right, over the past year, tensions with police, not only here locally, but around the country. You're a former police officer. You've seen the inner workings of the NYPD. How do you think that will help you build a better relationship with the public, right? Especially trust when you become mayor, if you become mayor.
That's the magic term, trust. We need to rebuild that trust, and there are many ways we can do it. Number one, we must diversify our police department. Over 30% of our officers reside outside the city of New York. That is not a police department we want. We want our residents here. I will promote my peace officers into the police department after 2 years of service. Overwhelmingly, the numbers of peace officers are from the city, and they are diverse, Black, Brown, and South Asian. Second, as the mayor instituted part of my plan, I would have local community leaders and stakeholders interview their precinct commanders. That's a significant position in the police department, and that would build the trust after looking at the background of that potential precinct commander and looking at his prior records.
And I want
So that's how he was going to make New York City safer. Get rid of the white guys like Scott Monroe, the people that live 30% that live out of state. We're going to get rid of the white guys, and we're going to hire traffic agents because they're more diverse. So he's going to push DEI ahead of public safety. He's going to legally hire people based upon their skin color. And where are you, President Trump? Where's the Civil Rights Division? Where's the DOJ? You're going after Brandon Johnson? This is what you get. This is what you got. Oh, you love New York City, President Trump, but you're going to have to send the National Guard in here? You're going to have to send the feds in here? You serious? And you idiots are all cheering it on? Oh, yeah, take us over. Declare that it's a state of emergency. Out of here. What? So what? I can have another traffic agent telling me what to do? He doesn't know his ass from his elbow.
You want cops to live in the city, and yet you continue disregarding the concerns of citizens here, of residents here, and you keep hiding the actual numbers of the actual crime stats while continually understaffing precincts. Yeah, I'm really sure that that's gonna encourage guys to move within the city. Which
and by the way, he got rid of all of us. You lived in the city. I lived in the city. Sal lived in the city. Like what? Like, you want guys from the city? Lived in the city our whole lives.
Yeah. Very good point, John. Very good point. Yeah.
Well, listen, I was a New York City kid my whole life. Grew up in New York City, loved it. I'm not in New York City anymore, and nor do I miss it. I don't want to see the Eric Adams administration. But do we care about New York City? Damn right. My mother still lives in New York City. I have a lot of family in New York City. Care about New York City. New York City will always be near and dear, and it's a disaster right now. It's a shell of what it was. What are we going to do about it? We're going to keep being the squeaky wheel because the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We're not going to be silent and just fade away. That's what they want. That's why they push the rhetoric that we're anti-cop and all this nonsense. Not bad for a small podcast. I can say that. Look, here you go. This is a clear indication of what's going on. This is a result of Eric Adams. That picture right there. That's a 7-3 precinct. That's approximately May of this year. That's about 50 some odd recruits that graduated and were assigned to the 7-3 precinct. Now, do I care what they look like? I don't. But don't tell me that's organic. There are 3 white male police officers in that picture. New York City is a makeup of 5 boroughs. Approximately 30% of New York City are white. Now, if you're a New York City police officer, active retired members know this. If you're outside the NYPD or law enforcement in another agency, or if you're just a police enthusiast, in order to be a New York City police officer, you can reside in the 5 boroughs or outside counties. Those outside counties are Westchester, where there is more than 50% makeup is white. Putnam County is 77% white. Suffolk County is 50% white. Nassau County is 50% white. Orange County, same thing. And Rockland County. And yet that picture is 3 white police officers. I could care less what they look like, who they love. But the point is, don't tell me that's organic. That's completely manufactured.
Yeah, and don't tell me all those people passed a run in the academy either, or got over that wall.
Yeah, ridiculous. And Pat Donahue says, and yet the unions are rushing to social media to endorse Eric Adams. I say let's diversify the unions. That's what I say. I don't think that's department. Department's majority minority. I agree. I think the union heads should have to live in New York City. And I think that it should be diverse. I think it looks like the Good Old Boys Club. All of them live in Long Island. They're all out in all these other places that they shouldn't be. You should have a direct interest you should be a stakeholder in the city. Like, we shouldn't have a mayor that lives in Fort Lee, New Jersey. We should have never had a police commissioner that lives outside of the city, but everybody disregarded in Keechant Sewell. And then Ed Caban came in and he lives outside the city, right? And Jessica Tisch, who knows, part-time Hamptons, part-time New York City. Who knows where the hell she lives? She lives wherever she wants. She's probably closer to the city than the last two, but all of those rules should have to be adhered to. Kaz Daughtry, live in the 5 boroughs. He should live in the 5 boroughs, not deep in Long Island. No, sorry. Get your ass back here. You claim you care about the city? Get your ass back here. That's it. Like, you have to live in these 5 boroughs, and that's where, it's laughable. He's telling people that they need to live in the city. The unions who live outside of the city are white, and he's saying doesn't want any white guys. They're endorsing him. And meanwhile, this dude lives in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Are you hearing the hypocrisy? Does anybody see it? Like, it's ridiculous. It's hypocrisy at a level we've never ever seen.
I got to push back on this comment right here. It comes from Irv, new friend to the podcast, I guess. Welcome. Thank you so much. You can't say you don't care what they look like, then complain about not enough white people. So I think you're missing the mark on what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying there's not enough white people. What we're saying is, based on those numbers, if there's an organic hiring process, and according to Eric Adams, what we've heard is that the demographics should match the police department. The police department should match their communities. So clearly that doesn't match. How could the hiring process be organic? I know many alpha white males that did not get the job, and they were psyched. They did not receive it for psych. And to me, they were completely qualified. Some of the nicest people I've ever met. They had all the great attributes to be a police officer. And to me, they were completely discriminated against. And you see that in the picture. We're talking about all-out discrimination. I don't care what they look like, but you clearly see there's discrimination. We're not asking for more white people. We're asking for an organic process and hire the most suitable. And if the most suitable appear to are all black, God bless. But it's impossible based on those numbers.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, nobody's saying, oh yeah, just let's sprinkle some whites in. Like, he's saying, let's sprinkle some blacks and Asians and Latinos in there. No, we're saying that he succeeded at his mission, which he was going to discriminate against whites and was going to hire based upon race. That's what we're saying. We're saying that it's an artificial diversity. It's not organic. It's not real. It's not real. He is violating the law. He's violating civil rights law, and he weaponized the vaccine mandate to meet those goals. And when you look, Tom's saying the majority of the cops are midgets. When you look, a lot of the people that they're hiring are females. And I don't believe that that's organic either. I believe that that's completely artificial as well. You know, so I'm not saying let's sprinkle this in. Oh, hey, let's make it even. I'm not Tanya Meisenholder sitting here saying we need to hire more Asian women. We need to get them to want to take the job. That's going to make the police department better. That's going to make us safer. I guarantee you one thing. Yeah, I guarantee you Asian women are less likely to use force, are less likely to arrest people, are less likely to have complaints because they're less likely to do actual police work.
Yeah. It would be one thing if the job was hiring, women that look like they were lifelong athletes and look like they can, when stuff hits the fan, that they can jump in there and get the perp and cuffs too. But when you look at those pictures and you're seeing women and men to an extent who are 4 feet tall and look like they struggle to run a mile, you telling me that's artificial? That's natural? There's no way that's natural, and there's no way that there weren't corners cut in the academy so that they could push them through. Okay, you need people who can do the job. This isn't a job for everybody. Okay, and if you don't have the physical qualifications for it, and you're unwilling to change, because there are some people who go in the academy, a little overweight, and they come out like in great shape because they want the job and they're going to push themselves to do it. But if you can't get those people, then it's doesn't benefit the job. And just by looking at what the product we're getting now, you can't say that that's natural.
Well, that solidifies my point. I've been saying not only white males, white alpha males, but also white alpha females. I mean, we see a different caliber of females now in comparison to John. When we were working together as rookies, and we spoke about it earlier on different podcasts, but we think about the women that we worked with in the 120 precinct. They were feminine. They were women, but they had those masculine and alpha traits to be awesome police officers. And they were. They looked like women when they were off duty. They were women. But they had those traits. And they were awesome police officers, and they were alpha, and they were really good at it too.
Yeah, Tom says there was nothing more intimidating than 80s, 90s cops. Cops today just yell, slap me because I look weak. I'm not really going to argue with you, I'm just not. So listen, West Indian Day parade's coming up. Juve's coming up. Super Bowl parades. Make sure that you protect your ankles. You don't want to end up like this guy, sidelined on the bench, spending your whole tour when you're supposed to be out there protecting the citizens of New York City, just with your vest off and your shirt off, laying there like a fat slob on the bench because your ankle got tweaked, and then try to use it 20 years later while you're running the police department to get 3/4. So just make sure you protect your ankles during these times. This isn't not a paid sponsor, by the way, but you know there's plenty of ankle protection out there for you.
Yeah. Jeez. You know, this speaks about, again, you really want to be a cop. You're gonna want to be the best cop you can be, and you know you're a little bit overweight. And I mean, not just for the sake of your own life, okay, but to be able to do the job, you're gonna have to make those changes on your own to get in the best, to become the best cop that you can be. You know, and when you see things like this, you gotta wonder where their heads at, you know. And it's not just for these young cops, but when I said this before, if somebody made me PC, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to look good in that uniform, even if you're chief, okay? And you can't have the top executives of the NYPD looking like they'd struggle to run up the stairs. And I'm talking about you, John Chell. Okay, I'm sorry, but you're a chief of department. You know, you're the face, one of the faces of the department. When you look at these Florida sheriffs, you know, they all look good in the uniform. They look like they're the man in charge. They're the face of their departments. And we can't have like the face of our department looking like he swallowed a couple too many donuts, you know. So this is a problem.
And this was 20 years ago, by the way. there's been a lot of weathering since then, you know.
And not just the face, we're talking about the neck. Gotta make sure the neck looks right.
Crazy.
But that's why I said, listen, if you can't control what goes into your mouth, how can we trust you to be a good leader? I mean, it takes an extreme amount of discipline to control what you eat while you're in the police spot. When you retire, if you want to let yourself go, God bless. But I think while you're on the job, I think you should maintain a certain level of appearance and fitness and health. Again, I don't think you have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be, you know, the most illustrious specimen, but you should be presentable and physically fit and maintain your health. A point that we can say, you know what, that's someone that I could trust. That someone looks like that they can have the stamina, not even run, but that they can have the stamina to withdo some stress or to actually help me in a situation that maybe they'll be able to persevere through it. Because your physical stature does go hand to hand with what your mindset is. And people do, let's be honest, people, I think the public respects police officers that are in shape more than they do someone who's out of shape. Even if this person who's out of shape is more intellectual and maybe better at the actual job, you're going to get a better sense of respect if you look the part in your uniform.
I disagree. You know, I agree with Eric Adams. We need to hire more traffic agents. You guys are just racist. I'm sorry. You know what? This video just proved why we need more traffic agents. You know, why we got to get this traffic agent that you're going to see in this video. We need him. 212 recruit, bro. Go see Eric Adams. He'll get you fast tracked on there. Don't worry about it. We might even put you on a fast team, on a fast paced team right away. So don't worry. Crime's down. This is coming out of Bronx, New York. Check this video out.
Nothing beats.
So here we go. Male with a knife, just standing in his doorway with his shirt off, threatening everybody that walks by while he's barefoot. And there he goes. Our newest recruit standing there, watching the male with the knife, not radioing, just watching this man threaten everyone that walks by, and he does absolutely nothing to intervene. So let's get that guy. Let's give him a hero's welcome. Here he is. There he goes, right there. That's what we're paying for. That's who Eric Adams wants on the job. Congratulations, New York City. You've done it. We've met it. We've met the goals that we wanted.
Yeah. It's
Hey, he said it best, John. We don't have a crime problem. We have an image problem. Now we have an epic fail. You're right, Eric Adams. The whole thing is an epic failure right now. The whole administration is a problem. We don't have a crime problem or an image problem. We have a problem with you.
So Eric, if like your wife and kids were walking down the block, you wouldn't feel that they were perfectly protected right now with this stunning figure of great quality. Because hey, listen, he's not a white guy from Long Island, so you know I'd rather have this. Like this is what Eric Adams would rather have than that white kid from Long Island who will actually stop the guy with the knife and protect your family, right?
Yeah, he's a physical specimen right here. Oh, absolutely. I feel safe.
And you know what's even crazier? The fact that he doesn't realize that uniform, you may be a traffic agent, but you have an EDP overhead. All he sees is that patch and that shield on you. Okay. So instead of you getting in that having that warrior's mindset, you know, that tactical mindset, you know, first thing you should be doing is getting on that radio and getting the cops there. But he's just standing around. He's frozen and he doesn't know what to do. And he doesn't realize
away from him.
Target he is.
He's blading away from him. He's doing the pivot. It's called a tactical retreat. That's called a pivot. Instead of blading towards the perpetrator, he's blading away from the perpetrator. Why? Because if the perp does something, what's his reaction going to be? He's going to run away. See you later. It's the tactical pivot. That's what he's doing. He's blading away from him to get ready to take off.
Well, that's even if he can get a chance, because if that EDP is in enough of a frenzy right now, he ain't gonna make it either. Okay.
You know what? I will say this: over decades and decades, unfortunately, most of the traffic agents that I've seen are out of shape. Their uniforms are usually pretty sloppy. I've only seen a couple that I'm like, okay, that person looks squared away. That's someone that could be a police officer. But we haven't seen any improvement, and yet that's where Eric Adams wants to use as his pool of potential recruits. It's just an epic fail, because this image that we've been saying before, that's why I had to push back on that. It's not about getting more whites. It's about getting the best product, the most qualified. That's why I say I don't want diversity in image. I want a diversity in qualifications. The most suitable. Let's get military personnel. Let's get people who are intelligent. Let's get people that were on athletes, sports teams. Those are the type of people that we want, that work in team environments, that deal with people, that have that camaraderie, and then have those masculine alpha traits needed to apprehend perpetrators. I don't know why people are so scared to talk about it. Yes, we need people that are willing to go into danger. We need people that are kind of edgy. Let's be honest. Do you want someone that's meek, timid, and docile faced with an armed perpetrator? Or you want people that are edgy, that with the proper training are people that could actually make the apprehension? Let's be honest. I don't know why people are afraid that we've gotten to this point that we kind of reward meek behavior. I don't know why we do that. We need to reward people that are warriors and then actually exhibit that.
Yeah. And Pat Donahue says, I'm taking a different stance. The ticket agent has no training to handle an EDP. His job's to write tickets. Hopefully he went over the radio and requested an NYPD patrol to respond. So again, we're talking about the fact that Eric Adams is saying this is the pool of candidates that he wants, because he doesn't want white guys that live outside of the city. And he doesn't want white guys at all, because they don't represent the city. White people, like when I lived in New York City, I didn't represent the city, according to Eric Adams. You know, I had no business there. Plus, you know, I'm Catholic, and, you know, nobody could believe in God. If you're Catholic, you have to bow to the almighty hand of government. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, is that the pool of candidates that you want? Yeah, I mean, clearly he failed, because his job's still public safety. You should still need to go over the radio. But I guarantee you, you know, we criticize that female cop who jumped in the water, right? I guarantee you, if that girl was a barista in Starbucks before she was a cop, or if she was just walking down the block that day, she would have done more than that traffic agent. That's the people you want to be cops, not the guy who's blading away in an attempt to run. And I'm not talking he's going to run because the guy's going to come up and stab him in uniform. I'm talking if that guy started stabbing anyone, he was going to run. That's what I'm talking. That's not the people you want. I'm sorry. It's just that you don't belong in policing. But that's who Eric Adams thinks is the better suited candidate. Eric Adams believes that guy's the better suited candidate. And so that's what I'm getting at. You know, that's what I think the whole segment is about, you know. And again, I just think it's disgraceful. Rafael Martinez, $10 to the podcast. How many of them dudes go to the command parking lots and start writing parkers? They always do, even when they know it's self-enforced zones. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, we've always got that. I've gotten so many tickets on my personal car and my unmarked cars, and I paid almost all of them, you know. So yeah, and again, they're like, oh, I didn't know it was a cop car. Like, oh, so you didn't see the plaque in it? You walked right by the plaque. You didn't catch that? You missed it? Like, wow, you're very observant. I could see why you're about as observant as Eric Adams was. So you'll probably end up with less than 10 collars at the end of your career and maybe become the mayor of New York City. Who the hell knows? And talk about how when you wore the bulletproof vest.
Outstanding. Listen, we're 2 hours and 50 minutes into it. I want to thank the chat, friends and listeners. Thank you so much for being with us on this Monday morning. Like, share, and subscribe. I think that's about it. I mean, let's get some closing thoughts in here and some comments. Close it out for the day. What do you got, Marlon?
Thank you guys for joining us today. And I don't think we got a chance to thank. Did we thank Raphael for his $10 for his coffee and donuts?
Stop looking in the chat because I just read it out.
Yeah.
Marlon's going to be banned from looking at the chat from now on, I think.
Marlon took a nap with his eyes open.
Yeah.
That was
going forward.
Yeah, guys. So thanks for joining us, and you young guys out there, you gotta get your head in the game. And by the way, I hate to say it, but the guy that I saw yesterday at the Rockefeller Center, again, I said that behavior of his it reminded me of a lot of traffic agents. And as we're seeing here, it's like there's just because you're a traffic agent doesn't mean you're going to become a good cop. And it's a problem, and it's going to get more cops hurt. And it's not just going to get them hurt, but it's going to get their partners and their colleagues hurt. And the job needs to wake up and realize you're not going to be able to use AI and these technocratic tools to micromanage this. This is not a problem that can be fixed with anything other than improving the human product that we have. So I'll see you guys on Friday.
Well, I think we nailed it today. These are the episodes I love the most when we do podcasts about things people talk about, but they actually don't want to hear about. They don't want to hear the truth. These are the episodes that I like. Tom, $1.99 coffee donuts says, imagine being traffic and have to fight, Eric. Yeah. Listen, I think I don't expect the traffic agents to be trained. But the point is, if we're looking at the traffic agents to be potential cops, then we should find those traffic agents that have those attributes to transition to the police department, not just pick them because they have the look and the image is what they want. This is ridiculous. But anyway, I like these episodes. We're talking about things people are afraid to say out loud. This is Monday quarterbacking, but this is necessary. This quarterbacking session is necessary. So friends and listeners, thank you so much. Engagement is so important. If you're an active police officer and you're out there right now, be careful out there. Be careful out there. Friendly fire is not friendly. You need training. You need good judgment. You need good discipline. Situational awareness is so important. I'm telling you right now, my best advice, do not point your weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot, and keep that finger off the trigger until you intend to fire. Do not put that finger on the trigger, because God forbid you get startled or you make a mistake, you will not fire that weapon. It only takes less than 1/8 of a second to move your finger from the barrel to the trigger. Keep your finger off the trigger. That's my message. Thank you, everyone. And of course, tomorrow, Tuesday, Sal Greco will be on the Sal Greco Show. Always a great show for you. And of course, Tuesday night, 10-4 Tavern. Check out Tom Joyce and Pete Vaselli. And we'll be back Wednesday morning. And then a packed week as always. Wednesday night, the Executive Perspective. And we'll keep rocking. John, close us out, brother. Find us Unfiltered. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, no. So, prayers for Detective Simonson, prayers for Detective Mulkeen. And thankfully, we're wishing a speedy recovery and prayers to Corey Fisher, Detective Corey Fisher, and his partner and their families, because honestly, it needed to be said. So, yeah, I'm not mad about my time in New York. I had a good time in New York, and I'm be back again in a few short months. So, I'm not mad about it at all. I'm just mad about that we almost got another guy killed, and we still haven't corrected from all these prayers to Detective Omar Edwards. All of these tragedies that could have been avoided. So that's what I'm mad about. I'm mad about the incompetence. So appreciate all you guys. Can't thank you guys enough. And let's keep going. Anybody in opposition to the podcast, let us know. Hit us up. Send us a question. Send us a message. You could come on. You could tell us why we're wrong or what we're wrong about. We appreciate it. It's open floor. And that's it. Remember, protect your ankles. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?